Close. Closed captioning and American Sign Language translation services. SFUSD will provide closed captioning and American Sign Language ASL interpreter services throughout today's board meeting. Live transcription can be found here. https://www.streamtext.net/player?event=SFUSD-board. Attendees who wish to provide public comment to the board and would like an ASL interpreter can use the Q&A box in the Zoom app to type their name or handle and list the item or items on the agenda they would like to comment on. The attendee will need to have a functioning camera in order to communicate with the interpreter and board. When it is the attendee's opportunity to provide comment, the Zoom host will promote the attendee to panelists and enable the attendee's video. Any member of the public may email their comments with the agenda item identified in the comment to boardoffice@sfusd.edu by 2 p.m. the day of the meeting, if they do not wish to make the comment during the board meeting. The comments will be read into the record. Can that please be repeated in Spanish and Chinese?
Buenas tardes. El Distrito Escolar Unificado de San Francisco ofrece servicios de interpretación en el idioma español. Si necesita interpretación por medio de Google Meet, por favor marque el siguiente número telefónico, seguido de la clave de acceso. 1-319-382-9676. Por favor introduzca la clave 665-996-976, seguido de la tecla numeral. Gracias. Cantonese interpreter, please. Thank you.
Excuse me, this is the Cantonese interpreter. Just to clarify, did you want us to translate this closed captioning and American Sign Language translation services document right now?
No, thank you. That's okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, go.
Then,
Yes, we'll be pulling up the translation slide momentarily. Would you read that one, please?
Okay, we'll read that in a moment.
各位家長，如果你識廣東話嘅。Go ahead, language translation.
Thank you. SFUSD is offering interpretation services in Spanish and Cantonese. If you need interpretation, please dial the following phone number. After dialing, please introduce the PIN number. This message will be repeated in Spanish and Cantonese. Buenas tardes, el Distrito Escolar Unificado de San Francisco ofrece servicios de interpretación en idioma español. Si necesita interpretación por medio de Google Meet, por favor marque el siguiente número telefónico seguido de la clave de acceso. 1-319-382-9676. Por favor introduzca la clave 665-996-976, seguido de la tecla numeral. Gracias. Cantonese interpreter, please. Thank you.
大家好，三藩市聯合校區喺今晚嘅會議度係會提供廣東話嘅傳譯服務，所以如果你需要廣東話嘅傳譯服務，請打電話到1-484-854-854-332-8，然後輸入密碼721-609-895重複一次，廣東話傳譯電話號碼係1-484-854-3328。然後輸入密碼721-609-895。多謝咁多位 ，thank you。
That concludes our translation services.
Thank you so much. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Education of the San Francisco Unified School District for March 8th, 2022 is now called to order.
Recording in progress.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Alexander?
Here.
Commissioner Bogus?
Here.
Commissioner Collins? Commissioner Lamb? Vice President Lamb?
Here.
Commissioner Sanchez?
Here.
And President Lopez. Student Delegate Lamb? Here. And Student Delegate Liang.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. This morning, I had the honor to read to a group of eager second graders. As I read the words aloud and turned the pages, I was reminded of the many nights I read books to my own kids, as well as serving as a parent volunteer coordinator for Read Aloud Days at their elementary school. But this morning was so much more than that. I was in a classroom, the students were in class, in school, and we were together. And in-person learning was happening. It was not lost on me how much it has taken to get where we are now as a district. And it was very clear to all of us that we have work also ahead of us. As I finished the books, the kids were asking me questions, we were striking up conversation, and it just struck me that these kids have only known school and learning in a life governed by pandemic since they were second graders. So I took a moment to ask them to remember to take care of one another. Because if we learned anything through the last 2 years, it's that caring for each other is the bedrock for learning and growing. And I could see in their young faces that they understood what I meant, and we really got to share a special moment. So thank you to the Sunset Elementary PTA, Principal Rosina Tong, and the entire Sunset community for inviting me to this morning's Read Aloud Day. It was truly a special morning. And tonight I ask us to keep these young second graders and our students in every grade throughout the district and all of our families, our teachers and our staff in our hearts as we turn our attention to the business of this evening's board meeting. So at this time, I'd like to announce the general information of notice of virtual meetings and ADA accommodation and translation services. Also opening items of land acknowledgement. We, the San Francisco Board of Education, acknowledge that we are on the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone, who are the original inhabitants of the San Francisco Peninsula. As the indigenous stewards of this land and in accordance with their traditions, the Ramaytush Ohlone have never ceded, lost, nor forgotten their responsibilities as the caretakers of this place, as well as for all peoples who reside in their traditional territory. As guests, we recognize that we benefit from living and working on their traditional homeland. We wish to pay our respects by acknowledging the ancestors, elders, and relatives of the Ramaytush community and by affirming their sovereign rights as First Peoples. Item number 2. Of opening items, approval of board minutes, special meeting of March 1st, 2022. I'd like to ask for a motion, second, and corrections.
Second.
Oh, is there a motion? Yes. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Any corrections? Roll call vote, please.
Student Delegate Lamb.
Yes.
Student Delegate Liang.
Yes.
Commissioner Alexander.
Yes.
Commissioner Bogus.
Yes.
Vice President Lamb.
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez.
Yes.
That's 4 ayes.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to call for our superintendent's report, Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Vice President Lamb. Good evening, everyone. We have an item later on in the agenda regarding masks, so I will move on to our rapid test kits. We have a supply of rapid home test kits that will be distributed to school and central offices beginning at the end of this week. Distribution should be completed in advance of spring break. Each student and San Francisco Unified School District staff member has been allocated 2 test kits. Most test kits have 2 tests, antigen, and a small number of test kits will only have 1 test, molecular. Both test kits are rapid home tests. School sites have access to a family outreach toolkit. We are encouraging students and staff to take the test, at least one of them if you received the one with 2, before returning from spring break. Please look out for additional messaging in the Family Announcement Bulletin on March 10th. National School Social Worker Week. This week, March 7th through 11th, is National School Social Worker Week, a time to focus public attention on the unique contribution of school social workers in San Francisco Unified. We know that school social workers are essential. They seek to ensure equitable educational outcomes for all students and ensure that students are safe, healthy, and ready to learn, and promote respect and dignity for all students and families. San Francisco Unified's school social worker to student ratio is lowest among California public schools, thanks in large part to San Francisco Public Education Enrichment Fund. San Francisco Unified employs 15% of California public school social workers, but makes up less than 1% of California public school students. I hope you will find ways to appreciate your school social worker during this nationally recognized week of celebration. National School Breakfast Week is this week. We are also celebrating our National School Breakfast Week. Students do better in school when they have access to healthy breakfast, and in San Francisco Unified, we're committed to providing this essential nutrition to all students who need it. To celebrate National School Breakfast Week, Student Nutrition Services is partnering with Bay Area-based nonprofit Conscious Kitchen to highlight the Good Food Purchasing Program and to serve 100% organic school breakfast. Schools across San Francisco Unified are featuring organic breakfast items like yogurt and fruit throughout the week. This morning, I had the privilege and honor to eat breakfast with students at Bryant Elementary. I can tell you that food was absolutely delicious. Women's History Month. Happy International Women's Day. Around the world, millions of people celebrate Women's History Month in March. Tonight, I want to share some of the ways San Francisco Public Schools have celebrated and uplifted women and gender diversity. In recent years, at Buena Vista Horace Mann, K-8 computer science and tech classes are learning about women in computer science and STEM. A group of kindergarten and fourth grade young ladies called Tech Queens have met after class to build community and to talk about tech and perseverance. Elementary school students learned about a woman who broke barriers to achieve her dreams. These women include NASA mathematician Katherine Johnson and engineer Dr. Mae Jemison, who was the first African-American woman to go to space. Thank you all. And that ends my announcements for this evening, and I turn it back over to Vice President Lamb.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews. At this time, I'd like to have our student delegate report. I'd like to call upon Student Delegate Lamb and Student Delegate Liang.
Thank you, Vice President Lamb. Good afternoon, everyone. We want to start off by giving a quick recap of our Student Advisory Council cabinet meeting from last night. We were able to discuss our timeline for our annual youth summit and elections for next year's student delegates. Next, our Social Justice and Equity Committee is partnered up with the Equity Office to continue working on the Title IX resolution, and they have a meeting tonight to continue working on the resolution.
We want to thank everyone for their support as the SAC is still currently in the process of hiring our advisor. And lastly, if you have any questions, please feel free to email Alicia at barillasa@sfusd.edu. Our next full SAC meeting will be on March 14th at 6 p.m. and that is open to the public. Thank you, Vice President Lamb, and that concludes our student delegates report.
Thank you so much to our student delegates. For recognitions and resolutions of accommodation, we have none tonight. Recognizing all valuable employees, our RAVE Awards. I'd like to call upon Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Vice President Lamb. This evening, I'm proud to share that our graduation rate in San Francisco Unified is 88%. Our students, staff, and families, and the whole city have cause to celebrate. Over the past decade, San Francisco Unified has developed and implemented systems to better identify and track the progress of students towards graduation and support our students in reaching this important milestone. I would like you to watch this short video featuring one of our recent grads.
2021 graduation rate actually went up, even with students staying at home during the pandemic. ABC 7 News senior education reporter Leanne Melendez tells us exactly what contributed to that increase.
The high school graduation numbers were released by the State Department of Education. San Francisco Unified reported that 88% of the class of 2020-21 graduated, an improvement from 84.4% in 2016-17. The graduation rate is measured within 4 years of starting 9th grade. Derek Lindsay, a Mission High School graduate, is now a freshman at Langston University in Oklahoma.
It can be stressful at sometimes if you make it, but I feel like it only is what you make it.
Even in the midst of a pandemic and with the often dreaded online learning, the graduation rate for that class grew. African-American students saw the greatest gains. What's different? The school district has been tracking students from the 8th grade through graduation.
Going all the way back to middle school to figure out which of our students are already set up to be successful. That's GPA, that's attendance, that's suspension, and that's what we call high school readiness indicator.
With that information, they know who needs academic support and intervention. Thanks to federal, state, and local funding and grants, the school district has added several year-round programs. One of them is called Black Star Rising, offered in the summer. Derek started the program in 8th grade.
It made the classes in school way easier because we already went through it in advance. And it wasn't as difficult. It was like learning a second time, and if you're gonna learn it a second time, it's gonna be easier.
After the summer program, Black Star Rising as an example, we stay with that student. We check in. We have a cohort of colleagues or peers that they're with, right? We have tutoring that we offer them. We're looking at their grades. We're engaging their families.
San Francisco's graduation rate surpassed the state's numbers by nearly 5 percentage points. In San Francisco, Leanne Melendez, ABC 7 News.
Thank you so much, Dr. Matthews. At this time, we will go into agenda item C, public comment, and the protocol for public comment. Please note that public comment is an opportunity for the board to hear from the community on matters within the board's jurisdiction. We ask that you refrain from using employee and student names. If you have a complaint about a district employee, you may submit it to the employee supervisor in accordance with the district policy. As a reminder, board rules and California law do not allow us to respond to comments or attempt to answer questions during the public comment time. If appropriate, the superintendent will ask that staff follow up with speakers. And at this time, we'll go into comments, public comment for SFUSD students. And we will hear from SFUSD students who wish to speak on any matter. Students will have up to 2 minutes to speak unless otherwise indicated. And we will hold up to 15 minutes of the general comment period to be set aside specifically for SFUSD students.
Thank you, Vice President Lamb. At this time, students will have 15 minutes to speak for up to 2 minutes. Can that please be repeated in Spanish and Chinese?
Buenas tardes, por favor levante su mano si desea añadir un comentario público. Les recordamos que solamente es para los estudiantes del Distrito Unificado de San Francisco, 2 minutos por persona con un total de 15 minutos. Gracias.
而家咧呢個公眾發言時間咧就係學生嘅公眾發言時間嘅。如果你係學生嘅話咧，你係可以而家舉手嘅。每位學生係有2分鐘，佢總共係會有15分鐘嘅。Thank you.
I also wanted to note that students may also speak at any other public comment time.
So at this time, if you're a student, please, and you'd like to give public comment, please raise your hand. Gabriella?
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
Hey, my name is Gabriela Gallegos. I am a sophomore who's part of the Peer Resource Program at Abraham Lincoln. I believe that Peer Resources is a very beneficial program for those who are part of it as well as those who are not. I am personally a mentor, but I am not the student you would typically think of for helping others. I don't have the best grades, nor am I the best student academically, but being able to help and support a group of kids who are struggling with the same things make it so not only they get that extra push that they need, but so do I. Peer Resources is a program that helps others find their true self as well as be confident in themselves. I personally have learned to be more confident when it comes to speaking my mind, even if not everyone agrees with me. Please fully follow the Peer Resources program so I can continue to be part of it and continue to help others.
Thank you. Karen Chow? Karen Chow?
Hi, my name is Karen Chow, and I'm a student at George Washington High School. So far, I've participated in a women and gender studies class where we were talking about International Women's Day, and I would like to propose International Women's Day be celebrated within SFUSD because women are constantly being ignored, and many holidays are dedicated to celebrating men. We want to incorporate a holiday to celebrate women in the next calendar year. It should be a day to recognize women's achievements, raise awareness of women equality, and acknowledge the challenges that women have faced in the past. In alliance with other countries that have celebrated International Women's Day, we want to spread the awareness of the issue globally and hope you guys will listen through it. Thank you.
Thank you. Carlos? Carlos, I will need to promote you to panelist in order to speak, so your camera may show. Go ahead, Carlos.
Hello. So can you hear me? Okay. My name is Carlos. I'm a senior at Abraham Lincoln High School, and I'm one of the peer mentors. And I feel that peer mentoring is
Sorry to
really
interrupt you.
beneficial to the
Carlos, sorry to interrupt you.
school in
We're not able to
general,
hear you clearly.
because,
I don't think
am
you
I
can
having
hear me.
connection issues?
Yeah, sorry, Carlos, we can't hear you
Sorry, I think I'm
well.
having connection issues.
Yes.
You say try back again.
Yes?
We'll have you try back
Yeah.
again later.
Okay,
Okay, how do I mute?
yeah. Oh,
Kathy?
Hi, my name is Kathy Chen and I attend George Washington High School. I'm also part of the Women and Gender Study class, and I would like to propose International Women's Day as a holiday to be celebrated. Women are constantly ignored. Many holidays are dedicated to celebrating men. We want you to incorporate a holiday to celebrate women in the next calendar year. It should be a day to recognize women's achievements, raise awareness of women's equality, and acknowledge the challenges women face. In alliance with other countries celebrating International Women's Day, we want to spread the awareness of the issue globally. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen Lee?
Hello.
Hi, Karen,
My
go
name
ahead.
is Karen, and I'm a junior from George Washington High School, and I'm also part of the Women and Gender Studies class. And we want SFUSD to have a holiday dedicated to International Women's Day, and that students should have a day off on March 8th to celebrate all women. And women are constantly ignored. Many holidays are dedicated to celebrating men. We want you to incorporate a holiday to celebrate women in the next calendar year. It should be a day to recognize women's achievements, raise awareness of women equality, and acknowledge the challenges women face. In alliance with other countries celebrating International Women's Day, we want to spread awareness of the issue globally. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public comment for this item.
Thank you so much. At this time, I'd like to open up for general public comment on non-agenda items, up to 15 minutes and 1 minute per speaker, please.
So we will have, if you would like to give public comment, you'll have up to 2 minutes to give your public comment.
And just a reminder, this is non-agenda items, non-agenda items.
For non-agenda items.
Buenas tardes. Por favor, levante su mano si desea añadir un comentario público. Le recordamos que es para cualquier comentario que no esté dentro de la agenda. Tenemos un total de 15 minutos, 2 minutos por persona. Gracias.
而家呢個時候咧，就係公眾發言時候，所有人咧都喺呢個咧係唔喺議程上要發表意見嘅咧，就請而家舉手；唔喺議程上嘅議題發表意見咧，就而家舉手嘅。咁你每位係有1分鐘時間，總共有15分鐘嘅。Thank you.
Thank you. Supriya?
Hello, this is Supriya Ray calling in. Thank you for taking my comment. I wanted to comment on a couple of points. First, I noticed that the chat function is available. I'm actually very glad to see that. I think it'll make it possible for people to ask questions and, just make basic comments. People have been using the Q&A function that I know the district wanted to reserve for hearing impaired folks. This could allow the public to tell people if they don't, to ask what agenda item are we on, or, can I see a speaker if the speaker isn't visible? So I appreciate that and hope it remains that way. Second, I wanted to make a general comment on masks and public health guidelines. I wanted to thank the district for following the public health guidelines. I really think this is the appropriate thing to do for public schools, and that it's an important message to send to the community, that we respect and follow our public health authorities who have our safety in their care and have been appropriately discharging that function, have really been very conservative and careful for us. I would note too that there are many countries that have long approached masking differently and allowed kids to go unmasked, although adults have been masked.
Thank you, Supriya. That's your time. Thank you.
Also, a reminder to the public, this is for non-agenda items. We are going to allow ample time for discussion amongst colleagues and board members, student delegates, under section Special Order of Business, agenda item G, number 1. So just again, as a reminder, this is for non-agenda items and up to 1 minute per speaker, please.
Virginia Marshall? Ms.
I think
Marshall?
I'll wait until later for my comments. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Julie? Julie? Okay. Jeff Locus? Jennifer?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, I'm calling in to encourage the board in any configuration that they please keep good a track of whether the district is following through with their commitment to hire a consultant to identify overstaffing at the central office. I noticed that originally the district had committed in their slide deck to hiring this consultant the first week of March, but by last week's board meeting, that commitment was no longer in the slide deck. I am curious if this consultant has been identified yet, or if there is in fact any intent to follow through on the district's commitment to cut at the central office before the sites. I have been in the district for 15 years. People have been asking that entire time. Central staffing has only increased at the detriment to sites who have now been given another budget responsibility covering all para positions, even those that would, paras who would not have been laid off at any time. This again, essentially is another cut to site budgets, but I don't anticipate the central office taking any cuts. Thank you.
Thank you. Daya?
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for taking my comment. I'm Deyanira Calorano from Everett School, and I'm here to request support for our school. As we all know, Everett School has been facing serious behavioral issues, and I have been personally outreaching to organizations to provide violence prevention programs, and I'm here to request your help. We need to have this kind of program at Everett School. Thank you very much, and for taking my comment.
Thank you. Lawrence? Lawrence?
Thank you for taking, yes, thank you for taking my call. I'd like to echo Daya's comment as well as the students who were speaking about the Women's International Day. Speaking about the board policy 1220, which I've reported about before has not been followed well. There's a number of advisory committee members who have gone way too long in their period. And I understand that there's a section of board policy 1220, which will apply at the next meeting. And the portion I'm talking about is when a board member leaves office, her appointments shall expire on the effective date of her exit from office. New board members shall appoint replacements as soon as possible. I sincerely hope that this board policy will be followed to the word at the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly Walsh?
Hi, yes, thank you. I am calling on behalf of, I'm a parent at Reading Elementary, and I'm calling to urge the board to stop the closure of our OST after school program. I was here 3 years ago fighting to keep this program because our students really need it. And we needed it now then, and we need it now more than ever. OST program is critical to supporting the needs of our students, particularly a student like mine. Without OST, we would not have an aftercare option. I tried to, my son tried to be in the CYC program, and unfortunately, while that program is great and works for many families, did not work for mine. My son needed accredited teachers in the after school program and more structure. So if we don't have OST, we're losing our only aftercare program that has accredited teachers teaching our students, and also has a smaller ratio of students to teachers. So I'm again really urging.
Thank you. That's your time. Thank you. Caller 7032. 7032.
Hi, this is Louise Whitlock. Good evening. I want to bring it to the board's attention that there are a lot of problems on your equity audit committee. The meeting last week was awful and a mess. There's open fighting and harassment among committee members, and no one seems to know or understand the committee's scope of work. That includes the project leader of the University of Kentucky, who's under contract with the SFUSD, and also is openly biased against some committee members, specifically the few Asian American committee members on the committee. I also think they are in breach of contract with the SFUSD. Commissioner Alexander, you will be assuming responsibility, as I understand it, for this committee, and I urge you and other board members to involve yourselves and get this committee under control and in compliance with the law and your own board policies and directives. Thank you.
Thank you. Malik?
Hello, thank you so much. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm a proud parent of 2 Reading children, and I would like to implore you fine people to please keep the OST program at Reading. I can't explain to you how valuable and how beneficial this program is to our community's youth. Furthermore, Ms. Robin received a grant from the SF Arts Commission. Therefore, all the comic book writing shops and the tech is already paid for. There is no reason to cancel it. Please do all that you can to keep this program. Furthermore, I do believe it is unfathomable to me that SFUSD would even consider closing such a beneficial and tremendously successful educational program while simultaneously allocating hundreds of thousands of dollars to change the names of schools because of their contemporary political beliefs. Therefore, I'd like to say shame on SFUSD for putting politics over our children's education. Please funnel that money that you use to disrespect great Americans like Abraham Lincoln to keep these educational programs afloat. Please don't turn the lights off on our children by mismanaging our public funds. Thank you. Please do not close the program at OST at Reading. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Carlos, we'll need to promote you to panelist and your camera will show. Go ahead, Carlos.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I'm a senior at Abraham Lincoln High School. and I'm here on behalf of the peer resources program,
Sorry, Carlos, we're having
which
trouble hearing
I
you.
mentioned earlier, but you had issues hearing me. And to me, I think it's a very important
Sorry, Carlos,
program.
we'll have to ask if you can please try again.
Oh,
We
again?
can't hear you clearly.
Uh,
Sorry.
okay.
Chris Klaus?
Hi, I'm Chris Klaus, a SPED teacher at Washington High School, and I wanted to speak on two items of importance. The first is the absolute nightmare that Empower has been for your educators. Many of us have not been paid for things like credit recovery program work for months. And then this month, things got even worse. Some people were not paid on time, causing them to be late paying their bills and rent. And then, and for me, I made about $700 less from my net pay this month compared to last month due to a problem with the direct deposit and Empower incorrectly calculating how much needed to be withheld for taxes. It's made it very difficult this month to pay my bills. That's just two examples of the problem. I can't go through them all. The second thing I wanted to talk about is the need for more flexibility of scheduling for your comprehensive high schools. With the ethnic studies graduation requirement coming down the pipeline, yay, super excited for it, but it's going to be very hard for young high schoolers to take arts classes in their freshman and sophomore years or electives earlier in their high school career. One solution that I'm a big fan of would be having all students take 7 classes each week to give them more flexibility to take a
Chris.
variety of classes.
That's your time. Thank you so much. Morgan? Morgan?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. My name is Morgan Wallace. I'm the peer resource teacher at Lincoln, and I was wondering if I would be able to speak right now regarding peers at Lincoln High School.
Yes.
Okay. I've been part of peer resource for 24 years, starting out as a 9th grader in a support group. And I've taught at Lincoln since 2008. It's transformed my life and many others. My understanding is that from my principal is that I'm unfunded right now, despite the fact that other peer resource positions have received funding. Central funding has been returned to direct services. Without peers at Lincoln, there's no mediation. There's no restorative practice. There's no youth-led mediation at the school. There's no mentoring. Right now, I have a class that's mentoring 35 students focused on chronic absenteeism, low grades, and other issues that students have. There's no youth participatory action research projects. Please fund peer resources at Lincoln High School. Thank you.
Star Child?
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm the recent past chair of the Libertarian Party of San Francisco and former candidate for school board. I would just like to urge the new board to respect the results of the recent election. Just one second. All right, I was listening on the radio, turn that down. It was confusing to hear my voice coming back to me. I think clearly people said no to some of the more ideological stuff that's been going on. They want more focus on education. They want more parental control. I think the school board went overboard on response to COVID, mandating masks and this kind of thing. It really should be up to individuals. And clearly, as one of the other speakers mentioned, there's still a problem with too much being spent on central office.
Thank you.
You know, the superintendent being paid several $100,000 a year is outrageous. That money should be going to classrooms. Also, please keep in mind that 1/3 of San Francisco eligible students are.
Noel, I'll need to promote you to panelist in order to speak and your camera will show. Go ahead, Noel.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, if you could speak a little louder, please.
Okay. Is this good enough? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, hi. I'm speaking on behalf of Abraham Lincoln High School. I'm a peer resources student, and I'm under Morgan. He's my teacher. Peer resources really changed my life. It helped me become more of a, it helped me build social skills and more of like, you know, just being comfortable around the school. And I think that the program really helps out with not only just me, but many more students around the school. And I really think that, you know, that you guys should really fund the program. Morgan's a great guy, and he uplifts, you know, students' energies, and you know the program itself does the same thing. And I just really appreciate if y'all could do that. And my experience was or is still currently going very well. I learned how to build new friendships and other stuff as that. Yeah, I'm pretty nervous. I'm sorry. But thank you for your
Go
time.
ahead and finish your thought.
Um, I'm kind of stuck, but you know, I'm more of just pushing the fact that you know you guys should fund peer resources, please. Thank you for
Thank
your time.
you. Jennifer? Jennifer? David?
Hello, does my mic work?
Yes, go ahead.
I'm speaking on behalf of Peer Resources. Morgan Wallace is my teacher, and I'm a senior in Abraham Lincoln High School. I would like to propose Peer Resources to be fully funded at Abraham Lincoln High School because I believe that Peer Resources is not only a class, but it is a group dedicated to creating social change in the school and community. Peer Resources is also a safe space for students to share their feelings and thoughts, which is crucial for social change on campus because peer resources receives direct feedback from the students. For example, a social change we're working on in our class is sexual harassment and assault on campus. I and my group is working on collecting stories on people's experiences with this topic, which will overall inform others in this campus of the issue and overall lower the rates of sexual harassment. It also is positively different from other classes because we learn about communication skills, leadership, and how to intervene when there's injustice, which are skills that are used in everyday life, but are not taught in normal classes such as math and science. And we also learn about social issues like racism, sexual harassment, and sexual assault, and even current events. Without this class, sexual harassment and assault would continue on our campus without substantial change. Please fully fund peer resources and thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Tony?
Hello, my name is Tony Hines, and I just like to thank Commissioner Collins and Lopez for their services on the SFUSD Board of Education and their tireless dedication and leadership. I hope whoever fulfill those vacant seats can do that and more. Thank you.
Thank you. Tommy?
Hello, my name is Tommy Tan, and I'm an immigrant with a severe physical disability. I have been taking peer resources at Abraham Lincoln High School since the start of the current school year. Before taking peer resources, I felt powerless and unable to make any kind of change in my community. I didn't think I would be able to do anything because I'm disabled. I thought that my voice would get drowned out in the world because of my disability. But this all changed when I started taking peer resources. I actually feel like I have a voice now, and I have the power to make meaningful changes in my community. Taking peer resources has given me a sense of community, a sense that the moment I step into the class is the moment that I know that I can make meaningful change.
Thank you. Crystal? Crystal? Caller 73517. 3517.
Hello?
Jordan?
Hello?
Yes. Is
Hi.
Go
My
ahead.
name is Haiti. My name is Haiti, and I'm a staff member for the Department of Technology, the Student Systems team. We were unfortunately told that our positions would be cut. We oppose this decision for the following reasons. This group helps teachers, parents, and students via Gradebook, Teacher View, Parent View, and Student View. During the pandemic, staff worked at all hours to support teachers, parents, and students. This was an act of management. The staff stepped up as always to provide service to our district.
We don't feel valued despite all the hours and hard work we do for everyone in the district. We are the ones working in the background in many of our tasks, but our services are critical to the health of our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Jordan. Jordan?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, this is Jordan. My pronouns are she and her, and I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank Commissioners Collins and Lopez for their service. It's sad that we're losing equity advocates. And I just want to say that to those who oppose equity, to those who oppose Black and Brown students being given the resources to get ahead, and transgender students and disabled students, I just want those people who hate the least fortunate students to go fuck themselves.
Okay.
Vice President Lim, that concludes the 15 minutes allotted for public comment for this item.
And that sort of language isn't tolerated here, so you'll be removed from meetings if that happens again.
Thank you. I just wanted to also acknowledge that this is an opportunity for us to really demonstrate and hold professional and respectful conversations with one another, both with our colleagues here in the boardroom, with our student delegates, and with the public. So at this time, we're going to go into agenda item number D, Advisory Committee reports and appointments. The Parent Advisory Council, I'd like to call upon Michelle Jacques-Venegas, please.
Thank you, President Lamb. Good evening, student delegates, commissioners, superintendent, staff, families, and members of the public. My name is Michelle Jacques-Venegas, and I am honored to be the coordinator for the Parent Advisory Council to the San Francisco Board of Education, also known as the PAC. The role of the PAC is to present parent perspectives in order to inform Board of Education policy discussions and decisions. This is our report for the March 8th, 2022 Board of Education meeting. I will be joined this evening by PAC Co-Vice Chair, SFUSD parent and community advocate Selena Chu. Unfortunately, other PAC members are not able to join us due to family and work commitments. Before we present our report, we would just like to take a moment to appreciate the work of Commissioners Lopez, Collins, and Maliga. We may not always have seen eye to eye, but we greatly appreciated your advocacy for students and families and for being a voice for equity in our school district. Thank you, and we wish you well in your future endeavors. Next slide. That's the last slide on our deck. If we could go to the beginning of the deck. Thank you. This is just an overview of what we'll be presenting. Next slide, please. Thank you. The PAC held our regular monthly meeting on Thursday, March 3rd. We were joined by Kenna Hazelwood, SFUSD's LGBTQ Student Services Coordinator, and school social worker Patrick Mulkern, who presented on programs, services, and supports that the district provides for LGBTQ students, as well as events planned for this April, which is SFUSD's Pride Month, including a Pride poster competition for both students and educators. For more information, email lgbtq@sfusd.edu. In addition to our regular business items, the PAC discussed the expansion of transitional kindergarten programs at SFUSD, recruitment of PAC members, and concerns regarding changes to masking updates, which you'll hear more about later in this report. I'll now turn it over to Selena. Next slide, please.
Sorry, I was on mute. Thank you, Michelle. Hello, everyone. My name is Selena Chu, and I'm one of the PAC co-vice chairs. I will share with you family engagement opportunities and information on the next PAC meeting. SFUSD's School Planning Summit was held this past Saturday, March 5th. While the summit has passed, we encourage all families to continue to be involved in the budgeting and planning processes at their children's school site. If you have questions about how to do that, we encourage you to reach out to the principal or other staff at your child's school, or contact the PAC at pac@sfusd.edu, and we will be happy to help. The LCAP, which is LCAP, or Local Control and Accountability Plan, is the district's plan for how it will spend the money from the state to support student success. In particular, students who qualify for the free and reduced meal program, those who are learning English in addition to their home language, and those who receive foster care services. If you are interested in learning more about the LCAP and would like to provide input on this plan, stay tuned because we are planning community engagement events, both virtual and in person, for the month of April. Once confirmed, these events will be publicized via multiple channels. One opportunity to learn more about the LCAP will be at the PAC's next general meeting scheduled for Thursday, April 7th from 6 to 8 p.m. via Zoom. PAC meetings are open to the public. All are welcome to attend, and we encourage anyone who is interested to join us. Meetings are conducted in English. Translation and interpretation can be provided with advance notice. Meeting information can be found at sfusd.edu/PAC. Agendas, Zoom links, and information on how to dial via phone are posted at least 72 hours prior to the meeting. If you are interested in attending a PAC meeting, would like to partner with the PAC, or have any questions or comment about the PAC's work, please contact us at pac@sfusd.edu. We will now share parents' concern about changes to masking requirements. Next slide, please. Sorry. So I want to share with you what we are hearing from families. The PAC and other parent leaders are very concerned about the announcement that was made on Friday, March 4th by SFUSD regarding the upcoming changes to masking in schools. Why would the district make these changes prior to and immediately following the return from spring break, when we know the transmission is likely to increase? Why won't you wait and see what happens after people start unmasking in other public spaces, like we just started doing this weekend, before making this decision? We do not currently have data on vaccination rates specifically for the school district, and certainly not by individual schools. We do know that vaccination rates vary by community, and as does the incidence of asthma and other diseases that create greater risk for some children and adults in our community. There's also still questions and concerns about how well ventilation is working in classrooms and outdoor and other indoor spaces. PAC members and other parent leaders are also frustrated that, once again, families, and especially those whose children and other household members are immunocompromised, have not been consulted, nor have they been part of the conversation that led to making these decisions. We understand that there are many factors to take into account. All we are asking is to have our concerns and viewpoints considered. Next slide, please. Okay. At last Thursday's PAC meeting, we heard from parents about their very real fears about the risk to themselves and their children. Families should not have to make the difficult decisions to allow their children to remain in-person learning or return to online learning because of the risk to their health or the health of a family member. Does this not violate their education rights and their opportunity to safely participate in their free and public education?
Thank you, Selena. There's also still many questions that remain unanswered, including what are the district's plans to support students who may return to online learning as a result of the masking changes? Will there be sufficient staff to support their learning? What about the missed opportunities, learning opportunities, and services for students with IEPs? These have been ongoing issues since the start of the pandemic. And what are the impacts of COVID on students with developmental disabilities? Friday's press release outlined health and safety measures that will be implemented, but concerns remain about the ability of the district to ensure these things will happen with fidelity and consistency across sites, especially considering the challenges experienced.
Family need more concrete reassurance that health and safety measures will work. And what about when students do get sick, and then they and those who care for them have to miss school and work to quarantine, leading to more unfinished learning and loss of wages? What about family members who might not have access to sick days and adequate healthcare options? We are all tired of wearing masks, but it is a mild inconvenience for the vast majority of us, one that certainly does not outweigh the risks to many of our students, staff, family, and community members. Next slide, please. See, Michelle, do you want to recap? Oh, sorry. Michelle just let me know her internet, there's network issue with her. So I'll just go ahead and go over this slide. So we have what we know right now, we have several bullet points, and this is COVID-19 in schools. So COVID-19 is an airborne virus. Clean air and masks are essential to stopping its spread. COVID-19 can cause severe and chronic illness, disability, and death for educators, students, and families. Vaccines help protect against death and severe disease, but too few students are vaccinated. Reduce the spread and impact of COVID on children and their families is an important part of protecting their mental health. High quality masks, especially when universally used, limit transmissions, and we have seen it, in the past 2 years. Testing helps keeps schools safer and informed decision making. The U.S. public and SFUSD parents in particular support protections in school. Over 200,000 children have lost a caregiver during the pandemic, causing emotional stress, poor mental health, and severe disruptions to learning. Black and Latinx children have been disproportionately impacted. Even more students have had a caregiver hospitalized or suffering from long COVID. Tragically, more than 400 teachers have died from COVID. So we also attach the source of where this information is coming from. If you're interested, please feel free to email us and we're more than happy to share the link with you. See, okay, so I'll continue. I think Michelle is still trying to get back on. So again, there is no empirical evidence showing that masks interfere with student learning and social emotional development. Based on the review of available literature, the South Carolina Department of Health conclude no data regarding the impact of mask wearing on children's academic development or performance was identified during a thorough scientific literature review. Experts agree, including the American Academy of Pediatrics, who notes masks will not affect your child's ability to focus or learn in school. Schools should support any student who are struggling with learning during this pandemic. Quotation is the mask will not affect your child's ability to focus or learn in school. So also happy to share with you the source if you wanted to know where this information is coming from.
Thank you, Selena. I'm so sorry about my technical difficulties. I'm happy to take over from here if you want for the next slide or two, or you can
Great.
continue.
We're currently on slide 8. I'll let
Okay.
Michelle take over. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry about that. Next slide, please, Judson. Or
We're on
Miss
slide
Elisa.
8.
Thank you. All right. Thank you so much. So SFUSD has been a model for public health precautions during the pandemic, and parents and caregivers need for this to continue. We ask the district to take responsible action to protect students and families by continuing to require masking indoors to allow time to prevent a surge. We greatly appreciate the superintendent's comments that test kits will be provided and should be distributed to families and students prior to spring break. However, that should leaves us a little concerned. We ask for a guarantee that all students and staff will receive their test kits prior to departing for spring break. And we highly encourage all families to test their students on Sunday, April 3rd, to help prevent infections coming to school sites on Monday, April 4th. The January surge was avoidable and would have been worse if masks had not been required, which is why we continue to stress that we would like masks to continue. This is an issue of equity and one of public health and safety. As a school district, we cannot say we are student-centered, we are committed to social justice, and that student health and safety is a priority, and then do things like this. If even one student, teacher, staff, or family member is harmed as a result of this decision, then the district should be held responsible. Next slide, please.
Do you want me to take over, Michelle?
That's okay. Thank you, Selena. So this concludes our PAC report. We thank you for this opportunity. We welcome your questions. And then I have a process question. We received a letter from a parent who was going to attend the meeting and make public comment, but is now not able to. And I wondered if I should read their letter before we open public comment, or during, or at the end, what your preference is.
Thank you, Michelle, and to the PAC and Selena for your presentation. For a process question, Michelle, I will have you read into the record under public comment. So at this time, before I open up for questions to my colleagues about the PAC report, just want to acknowledge that we understand that many members of the public may want to speak to the potential masking policy change here under the PAC report. However, we would like to have this discussion and hear public comment on this item later in the agenda when the board will be asked to take action under special order of business number 1. So at this time, I'd like to open up to public comment up to 10 minutes, 1 minute each. And Michelle, at this time, if you want to read into the record the letter that you have.
Thank you very much. I think it's a little over a minute, but I'll do my best. This parent wrote, I wanted to express our family's disappointment and concern regarding the updated indoor masking guidelines that are set to take effect soon. Unfortunately, our family no longer feels safe continuing to send our 2 elementary school kids to school at this time, now that masks are not going to be required inside, and testing and staying home if exposed to COVID will become optional too. Much of our worries stem from having an unvaccinated child who is too young to have the opportunity to get vaccinated yet. Since we don't want to risk our toddler's health, this recent development has put us in the extremely difficult position of being forced to choose between our children's education or their health. Additionally, since COVID has been very present in both our children's classrooms, with positive cases in one of their classes nearly every couple of weeks in the last 2 months alone, we have often felt that the masks have played an enormous role in preventing our children from bringing COVID home to the whole family. Although our kids could continue to voluntarily mask themselves if others don't, we don't feel that this would be worth the potential psychological implications, especially considering that masking efficacy would be significantly reduced and the school year is close to over. I imagine that there are others who are in either similar or more severe situations, so I am hoping to appeal to you, the district, to consider continuing the universal mask mandate through the end of this school year, which would only be a short 8 weeks and 3 days longer for elementary school students. That would allow every age group to have the opportunity to get vaccinated before all COVID protocols are removed. After all, students have been masking in schools for nearly a year straight at this point, so continuing for just 2 more months feels like a good trade-off. Additionally, masking indoors in schools is still recommended by the CDC. However, without the indoor mask requirement, achieving the current level of protection will be impossible. Finally, I wanted to find out whether any thought has been given to alternative independent study options for families who don't feel comfortable sending their kids to school without universal masking in place indoors. Thank you very much.
Thank you. At this time, we will hear public comment on the Parent Advisory Council report. You will have 1 minute to speak for a total of 10 minutes. Please raise your hand if you would like to speak to this item. Can that please be repeated in Spanish and Chinese?
Buenas tardes. Si quiere hacer un comentario relacionado con el informe del PAC, por favor, levante la mano. Gracias.
如果你想對家長諮詢委員會報告發表意見嘅話，請而家舉手。你會有1分鐘發表意見，總共會有10分鐘嘅。Thank you.
Thank you.
Friendly reminder, if the public comment is only for the PAC report, and if your public comment is related to the potential masking policy change, we will take public comment under special order of business number 1. Thank you.
Thank you. Julie? Julie?
Oh, nice. Nice. I keep thinking that.
Virginia Marshall? Miss Marshall? Jennifer?
Hi, I'd like to thank the PAC for their.
I'm speaking. I was speaking.
Jennifer, can you please hold?
Sorry, Jennifer, would you please hold? Apologies for that.
May I go ahead?
Yes.
Vice President Lamb and Board Commissioners, Superintendent Matthews, Deputy Superintendent Ford Marcel. I just want to commend the PAC for another great report representing all parents and grandparents on this very important topic. I will make my comments later, but I do absolutely agree that perhaps the district needs to put a pause and come back to the mask for all of our students after spring break. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you. Apologies for that. Go ahead, Jennifer.
No worries. Apologies to Ms. Marshall. Thank you as always for your comments. I'd like to also thank the PAC for their incredible work, not just in this report, but in their concerted efforts to make sure that all family voices are heard, not just the loudest and those most able to advocate. I'd like to note that later tonight, the board will be asked to vote on an item to rename a garden after Zamora Moon, who was my kindergarten student and spent the last 2 years of her life profoundly immunosuppressed as a student in San Francisco Unified. It's just a jarring juxtaposition from going maskless and uplifting her example. I really beg you to consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Supriya?
Hi, this is Supriya Ray calling in. I'm calling in to comment on a matter of process and fairness, or what I see that way. I first want to say that I appreciate the PAC's efforts to reach out to other folks, including members of families who have children who have immunocompromised issues and IEPs and so forth. I think that is super commendable. I also want to say that I don't feel like the PAC is actually representing the voices of all families. I feel like they are omitting or forgetting about or somehow not hearing or not soliciting the perspectives of a very large segment of parents in SFUSD, and that really troubles me. In particular, this presentation seems to me to be fairly one-sided in that it doesn't acknowledge that there are a significant number of people who would like the school district to follow public health policy. I also think there's something kind of fundamentally unfair about allowing one PAC selected public comment to be made on masking at this point, while nobody else can do that. I just think that's not an appropriate way to proceed. Thank you for taking my comment.
Thank you. Alita Fisher?
Hello, everyone. On behalf of the Community Advisory Committee for Special Education, I would like to thank the PAC, as always, for their advocacy surrounding the issues that are most impactful to families in the district. Today, the CAC is grateful for the advocacy of the PACs, and we thank you for highlighting the concerns of families with immunocompromised members in their household. We appreciate the allyship, and we're grateful to you for highlighting the issues that we raised last year. One thing I want to point out, the Northern District of California Court actually issued a temporary restraining order against AB 130 back in November. And on February 28th, the court made that restraining order an injunction. The court ruled that districts are restrained and enjoined from failing to ensure that districts allow students with IEPs to participate remotely in their educational program. So if some of us can't send our kids back to school now because of policy change, but we can't access distance learning, and it's been enjoined in the way that we've provided it, what are families supposed to do? Thank you very much.
Amanda? Amanda?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Good evening. I'm Amanda. I'm a parent of a child in SFUSD, and I want to note that this recommendation does not reflect my position, and I'm pretty appalled at this report and presentation today. I'm not sure why the parent PAC is giving a health presentation that's frankly full of misleading and out-of-date information. I want to stress that SFUSD should not act as a public health department. Our children have suffered whenever the district has tried to chart its own course and deviate from public health guidelines. I'd like to see the PAC stay focused on issues that reflect their expertise and continue to reach out to all families in the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Vivian? Vivian? Caller 0867.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, thank you. I was calling as well to share my concern that PAC report was not reflective of my feelings either about the masking policies. I think that PAC should stay focused on issues related to student well-being, and that it's really important that our school district align with our public health department's guidelines. Those are public health experts that take into account all the very important issues that are raised. Tonight, we know that one-way masking works, and we can't use subjective feelings and unverified and sweeping assumptions to determine public health policy for tens of thousands of people. On Monday, tens of thousands of students in our city will be coming to school mask optional. And I don't want to see a two-tier system created again where students in San Francisco are last for all opportunities for returning to normalcy. Throughout every meeting, we hear how much our students are struggling. And
Thank you. That
every
is your
time we have an opportunity to allow more return to normalcy, I
thank
would
you. That is your time. Thank you for your comment.
and align ourselves with the public health guidance, not only by the CDC, but the California Department of Public Health and the CDC. We will be totally unique in keeping a mask mandate not aligned with any public health department. And I would ask
Excuse me, you need to
that
stop
our
your
board
comments now. That's enough. Your
follow
time
the
is up.
public health
Your time
department
is up.
and,
Your time is
thank
up.
you for the time.
Your time is up.
A friendly reminder to the public,
Hello.
please recognize when your time has been acknowledged and fulfilled of your time limit. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Lamb. That also concludes the allotted time for public comment on this item.
Thank you. So at this time, I'd like to open up to colleagues for questions or comments to PAC. And again, I respectfully ask that if there are comments related to the changing policy of the mask policy, that we hold that for our special order of business.
May I comment on PAC's report?
I'm sorry, you may not. Public comment is over.
Commissioner Bogus.
Yeah, I just want to thank the PAC for their report, thank the public for their comments on the report, and I think just really lifting up the importance of us as a board in a district figuring out to help all of our advisory councils have better reach, to be in better dialogue with the families in our different school communities, so that they can kind of be an additional source of information and discussion when these things are happening. And so just really lifting up that message from the report and just want to be an ally and supporting as we move to hopefully a system that can incorporate more student and family voice as we make decisions moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Again, thank you so much to our PAC for your report. And at this time, we'll conclude that presentation.
Vice President Lamb?
Yes.
If I might just briefly, I would just like to offer, we base our PAC reports on our discussions at our PAC meetings and highly encourage, we do have a public comment time on our agendas as well at our meetings, and we encourage folks to attend so that we can hear from them, or they're welcome to reach out directly. Thank you.
Thank you. And at this time, let's see if there's any advisory committee appointments from school board members and commissioners. Seeing none, we will now move into agenda item number E, the consent calendar. And at this time, is there a motion and a second on the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second.
And again, board members may remove or sever items prior to the vote. Thank you. We are now going to take public comment. Members of the public may comment on any matter on the consent calendar, but members of the public shall not be permitted to sever agenda items for discussion. We will hold up to 10 minutes of public comment for the consent calendar items.
Thank you, Vice President Lamb. At this time, if you care to speak to the consent calendar item, please raise your hand and we will call on you. If that can please be repeated in Spanish and Chinese.
Buenas tardes, por favor levante su mano si desea añadir un comentario público. Les recordamos que son 10 minutos y es sobre el consentimiento al calendario. Gracias.
如果你想對同意議程發表意見嘅話，請而家舉手。每位係會有1分鐘，總共會有10分鐘嘅。Thank you.
Sharon?
Yes, this is Sharon, representing Chinese Parents Advisory Council. We stand with PAC to the advocacy of.
Sorry to cut you off, Sharon. Right now we're speaking to the consent calendar. If you would like to give a public comment on that item, this is what we're addressing at this time.
can we talk about the mask policy?
Not at this time. It's coming up in the agenda. It's item G, so it's coming up in the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public comment for the consent calendar.
Thank you. At this time, are there any items withdrawn or corrected by the superintendent?
No, Vice President Lamb.
Thank you. Any items removed for first reading by the board? Seeing none. Any items severed by the board or Dr. Matthews, Superintendent Matthews, for discussion or vote tonight? Seeing none. And let's have roll call on consent calendar. Ms. Lenoff?
Student Delegate Lamb,
Yes.
Student Delegate Liang,
Yes.
Commissioner Alexander,
Yes.
Commissioner Bogus,
Yes.
Vice President Lamb,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez.
Yes.
That's 4 ayes.
Thank you. Agenda item F, discussion and vote on consent calendar items severed for separate consideration. We have none tonight unless there are any, and we didn't have any items severed by board members. Now on to agenda item G, special order of business. Number 1, the tentative agreement addendum number 4 to memorandum of understanding between San Francisco Unified School District and SFUSD unions, IFPTE 21, SEIU 1021, UASF, and UESF regarding health and standards 223-8S01. Do I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, and I'd like to call on Superintendent Matthews to introduce the designee to read the recommendations into the record.
Thank you, Vice President Lamb. Reading the recommendation into the record will be our Acting Chief of Labor Relations, Daniel Menezes.
Good evening, Dr. Matthews, Vice President Lamb, Commissioners. The recommended action tonight is that the board approves the tentative agreement addendum number 4 to the Memorandum of Understanding between SFUSD and SFUSD unions IFPTE 21, SEIU 1021, UASF, and UESF regarding health and standards.
Vice President Lamb, so this is the item regarding masking. So, but can we just make that clear to the public that what this entails, the dates for the unmasking?
So at this time, thank you, Commissioner Sanchez, for clarification to the public. This is the changing of the mask policy. So when we open up for discussion, both amongst colleagues and board members, as well as opening to public comment, this is the agenda item for the upcoming potential of the changing of the mask policy. So at this time, I'm going to open it up to public comment. We're going to take up to 20 minutes, 1 minute each, please, for public comment.
Thank you, Vice President Lamb. As a reminder, we'll have a total of 20 minutes here for public comment. Each speaker will get 1 minute to speak. This, again, can that be repeated in Spanish and Chinese?
Buenas tardes. Por favor, levante su mano si desea añadir un comentario público. Esto es con relación a las reglas de la utilización de mascarilla. Gracias.
Excuse me， 如果你想對呢個三藩市聯合區與工會嘅暫定協定發表意見嘅話，請而家舉手。會總共係有20分鐘，每位有1分鐘時間嘅。Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, Yvette.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, you can go ahead.
Oh, hello, thank you. My name is Yvette, and I am a board rep of San Francisco Parent Coalition, which has since day one of its existence urged SFUSD to follow the guidelines from our public health departments rather than making up its own health and safety rules. So I am very, very excited and thankful to the district and UASF for bringing this forward. We hope to see the district act swiftly in implementing these guidance and the updated state and local masking regulations. I appreciate the work of the PAC on items I imagine are well within their jurisdiction, but I don't know of a single parent who was contacted by the PAC to weigh in on the recommendation they are bringing forth. And rather than having this being pitting families yet again against families and teachers against teachers, I really urge everyone who can vote tonight to vote on the side of public health and the guidance they have provided. I would also ask that we also take into consideration that it's very, very important that we acknowledge that so many families throughout this city have a difference of opinion. So I caution against letting one particular organization really speak for those families. Please, thank you for bringing this forward. And once again, let's just allow families to make the decisions based on what they believe is best for their families in accordance with the health guidelines that are given from professionals and the experts who are tasked with those decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, Meredith.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for taking my comment. This is Meredith Dodson, also from the San Francisco Parent Coalition. I'm going to echo much of what Yvette just said. We know that parents, teachers, and the community don't unanimously agree on this matter, nor really any other public health matter that has come up during the pandemic. And as always, it's been our stance that the district should follow our public health guidance. And so in this situation, we appreciate that the district and our labor partners are aligning with public health guidance, most recently with these updated changes to mask policy. And again, echoing what Yvette said, not pitting parents against parents, teachers against teachers, but just letting our public health department guide us. We surveyed our large and diverse group of parents across the district. 220 parents responded, and twice as many parents supported this move by the district compared to those who did not support it. And also, I just want to share that. Oh, okay. Thank you for
Thanks,
the time.
Meredith. Hello, Gregory.
All right, thank you. Just like to say that San Francisco has an excellent public health department and we should follow their guidance. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, Laura.
Hi, I just want to echo commenters who've pointed out that San Francisco has a fabulous public health department. They've really gotten us through this pandemic, and we need to follow their guidance. And that means the school district really needs to follow their guidance. We've seen what happens when the school district starts making its own policies. Please let the public health officers do their job and follow their guidance. That's all.
Thank you. Hello, Cindy.
Yes, hi, thank you for taking my comment. I have a second grader in the district and I also have a healthcare background. And I urge you to please listen to the healthcare experts. Please align with the CDC, the California Department of Public Health, and San Francisco Department of Public Health. We have been the most conservative in the nation. We have done our work. We need to give the kids the chance to also have a normal life. The adults are out there, they're in bars, they're not wearing masks. Why would the kids in classrooms that are in stable cohorts have to do anything different? Please give them the choice. They deserve it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hello, Brandy.
Hi, my name is Brandy Markman. I'm a public school parent, urging San Francisco Unified to do what LA Unified is doing, which is extending the mask mandate until the end of the school year. There's just no reason to take chances with the health of our immunocompromised children. And I ask people calling in to really put yourselves in the shoes of a parent who's immunocompromised or a child who's immunocompromised. Last week, my school sent us a close contact letter. We still have COVID cases in our schools. It makes absolutely no sense to rush this. It makes absolutely no sense to drop the mask mandate the day after families will be coming after home from spring break, many flying on planes, which will not have mask mandates. So please, I ask you to center, is it possible to center the lives of all of our parents and children? I ask you to please center the lives of our immunocompromised children. Thank you. Please extend the mask mandate.
Hello, Hova.
Yes, my name is Hava, and I'm an immune compromised parent. My son also has asthma and severe allergies. I'd like to point out that if you want to follow what the CDC, et cetera, is recommending, they are still not just recommending masks, but strongly recommending masks. So let's follow that. I'd also like to say that there was no dialogue, no discussion, no accommodations suggested, and no plan for those that are immune compromised, that might have struggled with being medically fragile. This is what has concerned me from the beginning when I first heard this. And I'd also like to say that I don't think the adults should be in bars either. Let's put our students first. I don't understand from day one how we have navigated this. I need to be honest. I respect those who want normalcy. I respect how hard it has been. I really do. But I need to ask for us to do this in a way that has some form of respect and consideration for those that are really struggling right now, not just in reference to schools, but out in the real world too. At least talk to us.
Hava,
Thank you.
Hello, Sam.
Hi, my name is Sam, and I'm a member of the CAC SPEDCAC, and I'd like to speak in support of universal masking. Endangering disabled people's lives is a policy choice, and we are looking at making such a choice. And I want to say that I realize there's a lot of parents who've never darkened the doorway of a special day class, and they don't understand what happens when you have medically fragile children together during a pandemic. It is really hard, but we have wonderful resources in the district. Our teachers, our parents, our disabled students, our community, our disabled community, they have input. They should have been brought in on these discussions. And yes, let's follow the guidelines of staying masked. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, Kendra.
You're up.
Go ahead, Kendra.
Yes, this is Matt Ryan. I'm the parent of a sixth grader. In San Francisco, we claim to be a community based on science, but yet since the very beginning, the overwhelming science tells us that our kids have been safe. And that's depicted in other communities across the country in which mask mandates are not required. It is time to have a return to normalcy. We have been held hostage by the unions and other organizations who have told us this is necessary. I empathize with those who are immunocompromised, but there are accommodations that can be made. We need to get our kids back to a sense of normalcy, and it needs to happen tomorrow.
Thank you. Hello, Sandra. Sandra? Okay, thank you. It says community member on the handle.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to echo the commenters who pointed out the biased and one-sided nature of the official presentation that was given on this. In fact, there's a lot of us who are looking at science and seeing that there is not good evidence that masks even have any significant impact. In September 2019, shortly before coronavirus, the World Health Organization published a comprehensive report on non-pharmaceutical public health measures for mitigating the risk and impact of epidemic. And they found, out of numerous trials, none of the trials found a statistically significant benefit of wearing face masks. Furthermore, if you think face masks do work, then if you have a face mask on or your kid has a face mask on at school, why would you be worried about somebody else not wearing one if your mask is protecting you? It makes no sense whatsoever. And thank goodness for people like the other parent group whose representative spoke earlier in public comment, pointing out that by 2-to-1 margin, parents favor ending these mask mandates. Thank you.
Thank you. Forgive me if I mispronounced Juthaporn.
Hello, hi, I'm Jutapon Shaloshib. I am a member at I'm a SSC member for Reading Elementary, which is District 6. But I'm also part of District the Tenderloin. So I want to make sure that maybe we can extend the masking, because I just, as a mother of a first grader there at Reading Elementary, I just feel like dropping them off the fence, it's really just working for us as a community there. If we can also extend ours, and just like LA, we also appreciate it, just because our area of the Tenderloin and that particular area, you know, we are sharing space with a lot of underprivileged people and unhoused people, and I just don't feel safe. I'm just really concerned that if at the second and you go to CDC, I understand, but you know, as a parent, I just feel it will be a lot safer. I don't want to pull them out before the end of the school year because you guys are unwilling to work with the parents. Our voice needs to be heard, and we know more because we have to deal with the, you know, the staffing issues with Reading. I mean, you already know the staffing issue. When the teacher's sick, it's really hard to get a sub because, you know, it happens really quickly. And so we have to be really mindful of the staff that goes there every day, the bus drivers that get sick every day. You know, last month, 200 of the 49 bus.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, Sasana Yi.
係啊，我覺得咧，我哋應該係即係好似阿 Pat 同埋嗰個 C Pat 講咧，即係盡量係可以保持耐啲戴口罩咯，因為即係事實上都係好嚴，即係都仲有機會係反撲噶嘛啲新冠，咁咧就希望慢慢嚟嚇。雖然我哋咧就即係認為戴口罩係好工作嘅，即係好 work 嘅。咁咧就當然即係大家可以有你哋嘅選擇咁樣啦，但係就希望即係都係要保守啲，盡量係俾多啲時間我哋小朋友即係戴多啲口罩咯，同埋尤其係員工咯，員工一定要保持戴口罩。
Okay, I feel like the PAC and CPAC said, continue the masking. In truth, there's still a chance that the COVID will rise, so go slowly. We think that the masks work, and of course you have your choice, but please be conservative, give more time to our children to wear the mask, and of course workers, educators need to wear the mask as well.
Thank you. Hello, Rianda. Sorry, there you go, Rianda.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Board Commissioners, Superintendent Matthews, Deputy Superintendent Fort Martell. My name is Rianda Batiste, and as you all know, I am a member of APAC, but tonight I'm speaking as a very concerned mom. When my daughter returned home from winter break, my whole family ended up with COVID, and that was with masking in place. I am very concerned about her going to school where everybody is unmasked. I understand they say it's optional, you can, you can't. But how many of our babies ended up with COVID when masking was required and they still received it? We have to be mindful, despite what the CDC is saying and all these other public health officials. Look at our actual numbers. Look at the cases of COVID that have been popping up continuously. There should be nothing wrong with us putting our babies first, being student-centered, and keeping the mask mandate in place just for 2 more months until school is out. I know the COVID surge is hit and it should be done soon, but it's not done yet. So please, keep our babies first and keep the mask in place, because all parents are not against masks. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, Rob. Rob, are you there? Okay. Courtney?
Hello, hi, my name is Courtney Helland. I am a parent of 3 students in the SFUSD, a kindergartner, a 3rd grader, and a 6th grader. I am very much supportive of making masks recommended but not required. SFUSD is an outlier right now. So many states across the country have dropped the mask mandate. COVID cases have not spiked as a result. The data proves over and over again that stable cohorts in school are very low for transmission of COVID. We need to blaze our own path here. We have a very conservative public health department. They have looked at the numbers, they have looked at the science, they have looked at all the data, and they have decided that masks should be recommended but no longer required. We're inching towards normalcy. We are not saying, everyone take your masks off, you're not allowed to wear them anymore. Masks will be allowed. If you feel uncomfortable, by all means, please continue to wear a mask. For the families that are ready to take the step, it should be allowed.
Thank you, Courtney. This is caller with the 312 area code. This is a caller with the 312 area code.
Yeah, thank
Great, go ahead.
you. Okay. I'm a mother of 2 children in SFUSD, and I wanted to thank SFUSD and UESF for embracing our public health COVID guidelines. They're based on peer-reviewed science and are already some of the most conservative in the country and the globe. Both of my kids have IEPs for speech therapy for speech issues and have been doing speech therapy for the last 2 years, either over Zoom or on masks, and occasionally both. SFUSD therapists have been wonderful, and I really appreciate their work. Unfortunately, one of the therapists wasn't able to notice for months this year that my kid is not physically able to make the sound she was teaching him because she couldn't see his tongue thanks to the mask. She thankfully had him take it down for a moment, was able to see the problem and recommend some exercises, but it makes me wonder what else we are missing for our kids with speech impediments in particular. So thank you again to SFUSD and USF for committing to follow SFDPH COVID-19 guidelines as they continue to evolve and giving people choice as to whether they'll be masking children at school or not. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, Gloria.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, hi, thank you, Judson. Greetings, commissioners and student delegates. Just want to speak to, I do thank everyone for looking at the science, and the numbers are coming down. I don't think there's anything wrong with holding on to universal masking until a little bit longer after spring break, after what we saw this winter. We saw so many staff absences and really an unnecessary number of kids catching COVID. I think Meredith calling in and saying they surveyed over about 200 people. That doesn't represent 55,000 kids in this city. So while I think, keeping our masks on is a good idea, and I hope that, I hope if you decide to keep the mask mandate lifted, we don't see the numbers rise again. That would be really unfortunate for many families. Thank you.
Thank you. Says Parents for Public Schools.
Hi, good evening. My name is Vanessa Morera, and I'm the Executive Director for Parents for Public Schools San Francisco. I'd like to appreciate the review and the steps that the district is leveraging and of which is needed to keep our kids well. Our students' health remaining center and at the forefront of all of our considerations and decisions are necessary to meaningfully and effectively educate the whole child. And the careful review of guidelines and the implementation of mitigation practices are essential to all of our schools and to our greater city. Thank you.
Thank you. And Vice President Lamb, that concludes the time for public comment on this item.
Thank you so much, and thank you to the public for your comments. At this time, I'd like to open it up to the board and my colleagues for discussion or comments. Oh, Dr. Matthews, please.
Thank you, Vice President Lamb. But I just wanted, before you started your discussion at the board level, I just wanted to make sure that it's clear that this is a tentative agreement that we were able to reach with the United Unions of San Francisco. It moves from a required mask to strongly recommended. And this does not mean that every student has to take off their mask on the dates that are in the tentative agreement. If families or students wish to continue wearing masks, they absolutely can. As a matter of fact, in the tentative agreement, it actually says masks are still strongly recommended. I think that the thought that all of our students are going to take off their mask is just not correct. Currently, our policy allows for outdoor mask optional. And as I walk through many of our schoolyards, more than half the students, in many cases, almost all of the students are still wearing masks. So I just wanted to make sure that I reiterate what's actually in the tentative agreement, and it is that masks go from required to strongly recommended on March 12th for our high schools, our middle schools, and our district offices, central offices, and on April 2nd for our elementary students, TK and elementary students.
Thank you, Superintendent Matthews. At this time, I'd like to open up for discussion amongst colleagues, board members. Commissioner Bogus.
Thank you. I guess I'll start by saying I plan to support the agreement. I do want to just lift up what I feel like I heard in public comment from families about not feeling like they were a part of the decision-making process and not really feeling that they had the opportunity to kind of give input into the decision-making process. And I would just lift up for me that that's something I'm really interested in addressing and figuring out how we can shift our practices moving forward as a district to be really more inclusive of our students and families, and really figure out a way to give them more of a voice in some of these collective bargaining decisions to make sure that they're at the table. And I'd also just want to just lift up the importance of us kind of as we fight our way through this pandemic to try to stay united as a school community, even if we have difference of opinion. Just to kind of understand that everyone is working as hard as they can to support their children and all the children and workers in the district, and as much as possible to try not to attack each other or to kind of assume bad intentions, and just really lifting up the importance of the PAC and the limited resources they have to reach out to parents, as well as our student advisory councils, and really how we as a district can support them to reach more families, and to be an even better representation and voice for our students and families in the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Student Delegate Lamb.
Thank you. I wanted to ask about communication that the district put out. I guess it was earlier in the week where we said we would be sticking with masks, and then we changed and put out communications that we weren't going to stick with masks. So I'm wondering just sort of the process around that and how that happened.
So I will talk at some level. So initially, we knew that once the masks were, the mandate was being lifted in the city, we received many calls and concerns, or in both ways, wondering if we were going to lift it right away or if we were going to extend it. A big part of the conversation or the messaging that went out initially was to say that basically that a decision had not been made, that we were sticking with it at this point. But we knew that a part of us moving towards whatever decision we were going to make would involve us having conversations with our labor partners. And so a big part of that messaging was to let people know that we were not lifting immediately as the city had, at least the language that had been put out. I think it was February 15th when the city lifted. And we had many concerns from people in both ways, whether we were lifting or why weren't we lifting. So we wanted to let people know that we were staying basically, and we could have done a better job of explaining that we were staying until we engaged in conversations with our labor partners.
Thank you. And I just have a question about one of the clauses in the agreement under masking, number 2. C, it says the district shall communicate to all SFUSD students, families, and staff, regardless of whether they are symptomatic or where their work location is, that students and staff are expected to use the rapid test distributed to them by SFUSD immediately prior to returning from spring break. Is there any way that we're going to be enforcing the use of these rapid tests? And if not, how are we communicating to our students and families?
Yes, I can address how we're communicating. We're definitely going to be sending a lot of messaging out in the next few weeks about all the changes, but specifically around the test kit distribution. So we've prepared a series of messages that will go to all staff, families, and our middle and high school students. And then we also have given all of our principals a set of auto dial, text message, and email that's all translated in our primary languages, so that when the test kits go home, they'll also be sending those messages out, because we don't have a calendar of the specific day that each school will be sending the test kits out or how they'll be distributing them. And then in addition to that, we have, I think, an important thing to share is a flyer that's going to go out in all languages that goes with the test kits about when to use them and how to use them. To your question about enforcement, it is not something that we can enforce. We have asked people to report if they have tested positive and to share that information with us, but we cannot enforce that everybody test. We will also make sure that prior to returning from spring break, we do a reminder to all families and staff to use the test kits.
And I will say that that as we have in the first part of this year, especially in January, February months, families were quite cooperative in reporting their positive results to us.
Thank you. Commissioner Alexander?
Thank you. Yeah, I, just like my colleagues, want to acknowledge the diversity of public comment on this. I think also just to name that there are patterns, not exclusively so, but patterns on class and race. And, I just want to lift up that these differences of lived experience make big differences in how people feel about these issues. If you live in an SRO, you're going to have a really, really different experience than a homeowner in San Francisco, for example. And I just think sometimes I feel like we lose sight of that when we're in these, we hear these, there's public comments that are coming from a very singular perspective. And I would encourage everyone to really try to listen and across difference and particularly hold the experience of the most vulnerable at the center. So, and people mentioned also folks that are immunocompromised, another example of that. So I just think we need to approach this with a lot of compassion and respect. I also just think Dr. Matthews' point is really important. Outdoor masking is strongly recommended. Right now, a lot of kids are still wearing masks. So I just think we need to have that culture at our schools. And we need to say if kids need to wear masks, want to wear masks, that has to be really respected and upheld. And so anyway, I would just encourage that. I think, and like somebody else said, we're not public health officials. We're trying to follow the public health guidelines. And I think that's what we're doing here. I think it's the right move, and we need to do it with deep respect and compassion.
Thank you. Thank you, colleagues, for your comments. I'm going to wrap up discussion at this time for the special order of business number 1 tentative agreement with SFUSD and our unions. A roll call vote on the motion, please.
Student Delegate Lamb?
Yes.
Student Delegate Liang?
Yes.
Commissioner Alexander?
Yes.
Commissioner Bogus?
Yes.
Vice President Lamb?
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez?
Yes.
That's 4 ayes.
Thank you. At this time, I am going to call for a break because there is 4 board members in attendance, and so we cannot leave the room. Otherwise, we would not be meeting a quorum. So at this time, I'd like to take a 6-minute break. We will be back, return at 7 p.m. Thank you.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Thank you so much for your patience. We are coming back into session. Under agenda item G, special order of business, we will now go to item number 2, consider approval for the resolution finding that as a result of the state of emergency declared by California Governor Gavin Newsom on March 4th, 2020, it is necessary to continue to conduct virtual meetings to avoid imminent risk to the health and safety of attendees. 21928S03. Do I have a motion and a second, please?
So moved. Second.
And I'd like to call on Superintendent Matthews to introduce designate to read into the recommendation into record.
So this evening, it will be me. As you noticed, you may have noticed, the language has changed. We say we're recommending. This time, it says consider this. So it isn't a recommendation from us, especially in light of the last item, which we anticipated may be approved, and if approved, the board would need to look at whether we are going to return to having meetings in person. So at this point, we're saying consider this, but it is not a recommendation. And I'd say the last piece I'm going to say is that one of the things we didn't want to do, we have done this consistently every month, every 30 days. So we wanted to continue with that consistency. We didn't want to just remove this and make the decision for the board. We know this is something that the board would need to take up. So it's here, but we're saying consider it. We're not making it a recommendation on our part.
Thank you, Superintendent Matthews. At this time, I'd like to open up for public comment. I am going to keep public comment up to 5 minutes because we've been taking action on this item consistently on a monthly basis.
Thank you, Vice President Lamb. At this time, we will hear public comment on item number 2 under special order of business. You will have 1 minute and we will have public comment on this item for a total of 5 minutes. Please raise your hand if you care to speak to this item.
Buenas noches. Sorry. Buenas noches. Por favor, levante su mano si desea añadir un comentario público. Gracias.
如果你想對特別議程2發表意見嘅話，請而家舉手。每位人士會有1分鐘，總共有5分鐘。Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Marshall?
Thank you, Board Commissioners. I would suggest that you continue your virtual meetings to protect your parents and students who have compromising immune systems, and this will allow them to participate each and every meeting until the end of the school year. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris?
Hi, I would like to see you guys do a hybrid model meeting where people can still call in from home, but people can also still be in the room with you, since you just passed the measure, allowing people to choose to unmask at school, despite that being a strong recommendation to stay masked. I think it would be wonderful if people had the choice to attend in person or continue to participate over Zoom. Thanks.
Thank you. Hava?
I'd like to second the hybrid if that is an option. I'm not sure if that's financially or technically viable. If it's not, then I would like to request for it to stay virtual for as long as possible. And I say this as someone who is disabled. It's difficult for me to attend meetings on a consistent basis, no matter what, whether it's COVID or not. This is the only, one of the main shining lights to be able to participate. And so I just would like you to think about that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Julie?
Hi, I've spoken in the past about the importance of maintaining a hybrid option. I would like to point out, based on the last item, which I strongly disagree with, the hypocrisy of having folks unmasked in schools well, the school board is, and having no hybrid or no remote option for students with disabilities who are immunocompromised, as Lee mentioned. But then deciding that you're going to keep your board meetings virtual. So I just want to point out the hypocrisy about that. Hope that we maintain a hybrid option for families that don't feel safe.
Thank you. And that concludes public comment for this item.
Excuse me, sorry, I had my hand up. Might I go?
Yes, I'm sorry, Michelle. Thank
That's
you.
okay. I know it's hard to see the panelists sometimes. Thank you very much. Michelle Jacques-Menegas again here with the Parent Advisory Council. And I just want to echo Virginia Marshall's comments and others that have called for, at minimum, a hybrid option. Folks may not be aware, but this decision also affects all of the advisory committees and groups that also meet. And the advisories have yet to hear how we would be supported in a hybrid option. We will need technology, we will need training, we will need space. And we have family members who have littles who are not vaccinated because they're too young, and those who have immune issues. So we still have a lot of questions and haven't got answers to move forward yet. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes public comment for this item.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Matthews?
Just a couple of additions. One, this declaration, the emergency declaration ends on March 31st. So this if it were approved, it would only be for one meeting. No matter what, it goes away on March 31st. So I want to make that clear, because one of the persons who called in said keeping it to the end of the year. It goes away no matter what, March 31st. The second piece is that this item is to determine whether there are virtual meetings or not, and if those, well, the next meeting. But in terms of the model, what we would do is be working with board leadership to determine, to figure out all the aspects of what the model would look like. But this item is just around whether you have virtual meetings for one more meeting. And as I said, we're not recommending, it's just to consider that. I didn't know, did you want to add anything to that, General Counsel?
No, Superintendent, I just would reiterate, tonight on your agenda is not a decision about continuing a hybrid model. It's not a decision about whether or not to allow public comment via Zoom. It really is whether or not the board deems it is still an imminent risk to health and safety to meet in person. That's the critical question before the board tonight.
Thank you. And at this time, I'd like to open up to commissioners and student delegates for comments and discussion. Commissioner Sanchez.
Thank you, Vice President Lamb. Do we know, I think I asked at the last meeting on this item, if the state was likely to renew this measure?
I am 99.9% sure that they're not.
Okay. So moving forward, even after this month, no matter what we do tonight, we'll be coming back live, having folks come into our chambers?
So after the 31st, for sure. Okay. This question is whether to continue, and we'd only be continuing for the one meeting, the meeting of the 22nd.
Okay. And then just, can you let us know, or let the public know, once we do have people coming back into the chambers here, how many folks we can accommodate? Will we have to be spaced out and have fewer than capacity for the room?
So in regards to the health recommendations, that isn't a recommendation. There are no further recommendations for spacing.
Okay.
And the max, I believe, is 149. It's on the wall out there, but I'll get you the exact number.
No, thank you very much. And then how would this affect the advisory committees and our own committees that are, you said at the last meeting, we don't have staffing necessarily to do both, to have folks coming in and also providing the hybrid model of interaction online?
Ms. Hogendijk, would you like to address that?
Yes,
Good evening, Superintendent, and I'll also lean on General Counsel Hauk for making sure that I'm articulating this correctly. So that provision would extend to all the board meetings and advisory committees of the board. So that would require us to move back in person, for all meetings that are within the purview of the Board of Education.
So my question is, will we be able to provide both in-person and Zoom type of interaction for the public at all of those advisory and board committee meetings?
Yeah, so that is the question that we'll have to work with board leadership and come back to the board either with the recommendation if we need a policy change or with the new procedure. But it's not an option to continue in this format, excluding the public. And that is if the board does not approve the resolution tonight. And when I say that, I mean it's not an option for the advisory committees either. So the decision about supporting for some version of Zoom public comment is not before you tonight, but we will need to be working with board leadership on that.
I think also just my last, question around this is that it sounded like Superintendent Matthews that you were saying that we just don't have the capacity of staffing for providing both in our committee meetings. I don't think you mentioned the advisories, but do you think we'd have the capacity to do both?
Our current capacity, where we are currently situated, no, we wouldn't. But if this is the direction of leadership, then we would have to figure it out. But that would also, of course, could require additional funding. But we would, if that's the direction from leadership, we will figure it out.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bogus?
Yeah, I guess I was curious to just get more clarity if we could actually get a date where if we do not pass this resolution, when the first meeting would take place where we would have an audience in person.
So if you didn't pass this meeting, you have that, or if you didn't pass yes, you have it. Jetson?
Thank you, Superintendent Matthews. It would be this Monday, the curriculum committee.
And so that would also be true for all of our advisory committees as well, starting on this Monday, then as well would essentially be under the same.
Yes, I believe so. General Counsel, is that correct?
It is. And one thing I would just add to the conversation, Commissioner Bogus, even when this board and all of its committees, including its advisory committees, even when you return to in-person meetings, the Brown Act has always allowed for virtual participation by committee members. The real question that we're grappling with and we'll be working with board leadership on is how to allow virtual public comment on items. So there are ways to allow virtual participation for committee members. We just need to follow the rules to make that happen. And we can support committees with understanding their obligations under the Brown Act.
I appreciate that. So I think understanding that board leadership is going to try to work a way to kind of have us take the best of kind of what we've gained during this time and keep it moving forward. But if we're not able to resolve that, I guess I'm curious, what ways would the public be able to give comment remotely if we kind of go back to our pre-pandemic kind of structure? And also, how would the public be able to view or listen to meetings remotely? And is there a difference between the board meeting and committee meetings access to those ways of participating not in public?
I can take that. Oh, sorry, Mr. Steele.
You can go ahead.
Okay.
Unless you'd like me to.
Yeah, no, I think, so for our regular board meetings, we have a lot of technical support from our sftv.gov staff, right? So we feel confident that we would be able to navigate that hybrid environment with those regular board meetings, given the additional staff. The issue is for committee meetings where we do not have that additional staff. to be able to support. We would need additional resources to help with that.
So then for the committee meetings, they would only be available for people who came in public. That's correct.
That would be for public comment. Members of the public are always welcome to email communication to board members or to the board secretary so that we can deliver those messages to board members so that they have that information. But that is currently that's our thinking about that public comment would be at committee meetings for people who are able to attend in person.
And Commissioner Bogus, if I could just add to that, because I think I heard in your question also, how would members of the public observe committee meetings? So we are looking at how we could broadcast via Zoom so that even if we were not able to accommodate comment via Zoom, we could still allow, members to view the meetings from home. And that is something we didn't have pre-pandemic for committee meetings.
Thank you for that. My last question is just in regards to the availability of childcare for the board meetings, which I know is a practice kind of before the pandemic, and just kind of what steps are being taken to kind of reinstate that as we return to in-person meetings potentially.
Yeah, so once again, oh, go ahead. Yeah, so once again, we will be working with board leadership on the procedures and what we had previously and how we want to move forward.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other comments, discussion, I'd like to have roll call on the motion, please.
Student Delegate Lamb?
No.
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 Student Delegate Liang?
No.
Commissioner Alexander?
No.
Commissioner Bogus?
No.
Vice President Lamb?
No.
And Commissioner Sanchez?
No.
It fails.
Thank you. Moving on to number 3, San Francisco Unified School District and San Francisco County Office of Education 21-22 Fall School Plans for Student Achievement 2238 SO2. Do I have a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. I'd like to call on Superintendent Matthews to introduce designee to read the recommendation into the record.
Reading this recommendation into the record will be our Director of State and Federal Programs, Roderick Castro.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. Tonight's requested action is that the Board of Education of the San Francisco Unified School District approves the San Francisco Unified School District and San Francisco County Office of Education 2021 and 2022 Fall Final School Plans for Student Achievement.
Thank you. I'd like to open it up for public comment and taking up to 10 minutes, 1 minute each, please.
Thank you, Vice President Lamb. At this time, we will hear public comment on the San Francisco District and County Office of Education 21-22 Fall Plans for Student Achievement. You will have 1 minute to speak. Please raise your hand if you care to speak to this item.
Buenas noches. Por favor, levante su mano si desea añadir un comentario público. Gracias.
如果你想對特別議程3三藩市聯合區及三藩市縣教育辦公室2021-22秋季學校計劃嘅成績計劃咧發表意見嘅話，請而家舉手，會係每位有1分鐘，總共會有10分鐘嘅。Thank you.
Seeing no public comment at this time.
Thank you so much, and I'd like to open it up for comments and discussion from the board and Dr. Matthews.
Should I do a screen share?
Seeing none, I'd like to call roll call vote on the motion, please.
Student Delegate Lamb?
Yes.
Student Delegate Liang?
Yes.
Commissioner Alexander?
Yes.
Vice President Lamb?
Yes.
Oh, Commissioner Bogus, I'm sorry.
No worries, yes.
Commissioner Sanchez?
Yes.
Ms. Voorhees.
Thank you so much. Moving to agenda item H, the discussion of other educational issues. Number 1, A through G completion improvement grant proposed expenditure plan. I'd like to call upon Dr. Matthews to introduce a designee for this item.
So presenting this item will be our Executive Director of College and Career Readiness, Dr. Jen Fong, and our Extended Learning Manager, Julie Yu. Can you find them?
Hi, I am Jen Fong, Executive Director of College and Career Readiness. And I will be presenting on the A to G Completion Improvement Grant Program. Next slide. Tonight's agenda is to review the program, including the grant term and anticipated funding for the San Francisco Unified School District, or the district, and the San Francisco County Office of Education, or the COE. So we'll review the plans and the next steps. And I will now turn it over to my colleague, Julie Yu.
Hello, Commissioners and Superintendent. My name is Julie Yu. I'm the Data Policy Manager out of the Office of College and Career Readiness. I want to give an overview of this grant program. This is called the A to G Completion Improvement Grant Program. The state will provide a one-time state funds starting 21-22 to local educational agencies, or LEA, to increase the number of high school graduates graduating with A to G eligibility, particularly English learners, student eligible for free and reduced lunch, and foster youth. And what I mean by A to G eligibility, this means that a student must complete a set of approved A to G high school course requirements with letter grade C or higher to meet minimum admissions requirements to UCs and CSUs. This grant consists of there's three grants in it. One is called the Access Grant, the Success Grant, and the Learning Loss Mitigation Grant, where districts will either receive the Access and Success grants based on the district's A to G completion rate, and all districts will receive the Learning Loss Mitigation Grant. And these funds may be used about over a period of 4 years that ends June 2026. Next slide. So based on our, for SFUSD, we will be receiving the Success and Mitigation grants based on our A to G completion rate of 70.9%. And our County Office of Education will receive the Access and Mitigation grants. And they have an A to G completion rate of 2.7%. And the total amount that we receive through this grant program, both SFUSD and County of Education, is approximately 7.5 million. Next slide. So just quickly talk about the eligible uses of the Access and Success grant. This is really focused on providing direct support to students in accessing and successful completion of the A to G course requirements. Eligible activities include professional development for teachers, administrators, and counselors, counseling support for students, expanding access to coursework, including maybe new and expanded partnerships with post-secondary education institutions, and lastly, advanced placement fees for unduplicated pupils. And when I say unduplicated pupils, this is actually a state definition. This definition includes English learners, students eligible for free and reduced lunch, as well as foster youth. Next slide. For the Learning Loss Mitigation Grant, this grant is used for students that receive a D, F, fail in A to G approved courses in the spring semester of 2020 or the year 2021 to retake A to G courses. And if there's sufficient funds available after implementing this activity, these funds can be used to offer credit recovery for all other students to ensure they graduate high school on time. Next slide. And then just quickly summarizing the program requirements, we are sharing the funding plan with you today for discussion with the board. The plan will be submitted on or before April 1st. And two other requirements: by the end of 2023, we need to submit to the State Superintendent of Public Instruction the metrics we use to measure this impact of these funds and outcomes. And then by August 2026, we need to submit a report of the final outcomes of this fund. Next slide.
Now I will present an overview of how the funding is planned to provide supplemental activities for students. So this slide shows the success grant for SFUSD, and it's over the 4-year period. Each of the items are ones that are allowable, such as professional development, student support for credit recovery, work with college access, counseling for off-track students, English learner credit recovery programming, additional high school credit recovery, post-secondary coursework for unduplicated pupils, pre-advanced placement classes for unduplicated pupils, and also the AP fees for students who qualify for free and reduced lunch and unduplicated pupils. Next slide. This is the second of the grants for SFUSD, the mitigation, and the proposed activities would be high school credit recovery, including evening school and Saturday school, as well as summer school, and an English learner credit recovery program. Next slide. For the county, the two programs are listed on this slide, the access and the mitigation. And similarly, we plan to provide student support for credit recovery, as well as the actual credit recovery in both of the grant programs. Next slide. And so the plan will be brought forward for adoption at a subsequent meeting. And that concludes this presentation.
Thank you so much. At this time, I'd like to open it up to public comment. I'll take up to 10 minutes in public comment of 1 minute each, please.
Thank you, Vice President Lamb. At this time, we will hear public comment on the A through G completion grant. You will have 1 minute to share your comment. We have a total of 10 minutes for this item. Please raise your hand if you care to speak to this item.
Buenas noches, por favor levante su mano si desea añadir un comentario público. El tiempo total es de 10 minutos, 1 minuto por persona. Gracias.
Thank you very much. Hello, my name is Alita Fisher. On
Sorry.
behalf of the community.
Alita, sorry to cut you off. We need that to be repeated.
Oh, so sorry.
No worries. Sorry about
Thank you.
that.
Thank you. 如果你想對 A to G 完成嘅補助金發表意見嘅話，請而家舉手。每位會有1分鐘，總共會有10分鐘嘅。Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Alita.
So sorry about that. On behalf of the Community Advisory Committee for Special Education, I highly commend the district for their work in this area. However, we have many questions. For example, what is the district doing to build foundational skills in our learners? Credit recovery is wonderful, but it's like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet hole. We need remedial skill building programs for many students. The CAC has raised many times in past reports that we don't have intervention programs in high schools for students who aren't reading at grade level. And if you look at the district's own data, and all the reading data we have in high school is reading inventory. But in the 2021-2022 year, window 1 data, overall, our high schoolers are only 56.3% of our high schools are at proficient or above proficient when it comes to reading skills. That's almost half. That's how are you able to complete high school level coursework if you can't read?
Thank you, Alita. That's your time. Thank you. Chris?
Hi, I'm Chris Klaus, a SPED teacher at Washington High School. I'm glad that we're discussing strategies to support more students graduating with A to G eligibility. And I'd like to make a suggestion for one way that we could support this goal and maybe use some of these funds. I don't know if you can, just a suggestion. It's to allow high schools to go to a 7-class school day for students, making it easier for students to enroll in classes that support them in subjects that they may be struggling with, or even to retake courses that they have failed or received a D in at the school that they already attend during their regular school day, working with people who know them and who they have rapport with. That would make it so much easier for our students who struggle to attend our credit recovery options outside of the regular school day or school year to get caught up on their graduation requirements. And it would allow more flexibility for other students to take classes that they're interested in, which improves their performance in their classes overall. Going to a 7-class day for students would also allow younger high schoolers to enroll in intro level arts and elective classes early, making it easier and possible for them to take the higher level classes in those areas in their later high school years, giving them a more well-rounded and self-directed learning experience. Thanks.
Thank you. Matt?
Hi, Matt Kellerman, parent of a junior at Ruth Asawa School of the Arts. I just wanted, as a school site council member, I've had an opportunity to review data for our school and know that the problem that this grant is trying to solve is a really acute one for schools, given the pandemic in particular. And I'm really excited that the leadership for this grant is coming from Dr. Fong, who's one of the most incredible leaders in our school district. I just want to get clarity on, since it's not quite clear in the materials, to what extent this grant is going to provide resources that are centrally allocated versus resources that are going to go to schools. It would be nice to have more clarity on the degree to which there are going to be resources particularly available to schools to address this problem.
Thank you. That concludes public comment for this item.
Thank you so much, and to the public for your comments. As a reminder, this is an informational item tonight, and certainly open it up to colleagues for questions and comments. And also just want to note that this is for the very specific A through G Completion Improvement Grant Program, specifically through the state. Commissioner Alexander.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll start with that. I'll echo that last public comment. Thank you to the brilliant Dr. Fong. And can we get some clarity as to how much of this will be centrally allocated and how much will be at school sites?
Yes, many of the programs in college and career readiness are all centrally allocated, but almost all of our staff are in schools, including, in this grant, the proposal will be serving students at all high schools. There will be some centrally located programs, but part of our programming includes site-based, what we call Sprout grants. So sites might be able to tailor part of their needs, and an allocation will go to support that work.
Thanks. It'd be great. Can we get a breakdown of that? Just because it's hard when we see high school credit recovery, $500,000. It would be great to get a breakdown that's a little more specific of kind of how the funds are flowing, if possible.
Yes, I'm trying to figure out how to do that. For example, when I look at credit recovery for students in math who are African American, if we were to count college and career readiness as a school, we would be granting the third most credits of any school for African American students in math. So it's hard for me to say how, to break it down numbers wise, because our goal is to serve students in the high schools, whether that means it's after school or on Saturday or in the summer, or whether it means helping during the regular day, working with students to provide extra counseling and that kind of thing. So I'm not sure how to provide a further breakdown, but this programming is going to be direct services for students. If I think that hopefully that can be conveyed somehow.
Yeah, maybe that's the better distinction. Maybe I didn't ask it right. Maybe it's more like direct services versus indirect services. Because I know the programs you're talking about I would consider those school-based in the sense of their direct services to students. And again, not that we don't need, I want to be clear, not that we don't need indirect services as well and support, but just to understand how it's breaking down because and this is kind of part of this bigger picture question we've been asking around Direct services, I think the budget office has done a good job of breaking that down around direct services, indirect services, and then administration operations. Maybe this is a place where the budget team could assist in that, just so we, at a board level, I would love to see this for all of these kind of allocations, so we begin to understand how our funds, how our resources are being allocated, which ones are directly serving students, and then what are the essential supports that are less direct, but we still need. And I think that's maybe the piece also that I think at least I, and I think other board members have been particularly interested in, is what are the effective uses of those funds. So that's the spirit in which the question is asked. And again, that may be more of a budget team question than your shop. I'm not sure.
I think we can work with Dr. Fong with the budget team to try to do a further breakdown.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews. Commissioner Bogus.
Yes. I get, whenever we talk about the A through G completion rate and graduation rates, I just always want to lift up the work of Coleman advocates and the student and parent leaders there, as well as the other community members and family members that really fought and put pressure on the district to really implement the policy and to make it a priority. I think I just have a general question, not necessarily about the grant, but I guess I'm just wondering, what is the district's assessment of why we have the A through G completion gap? And how does that gap that we have compare to the rest of the state?
I can start on this, and then Julie, if you have any further data. So I think that actually San Francisco Unified has been recognized by the state as a leader in this area. We did develop what we call an on-track measure when we developed the graduation requirements, which adopted the A to G requirements. And as a result of having the on-track measure, we are able to see how students are doing in the right at the end of fall of freshman year. And so you can see at different points, how are students doing in terms of credits or courses completed, and their likelihood of being able to graduate and being able to meet the A to G requirements. So as a result of that policy, almost a decade ago now, the graduation rate has continued to climb, and I feel like the gap has been narrowed for many of our targeted groups, especially looking back at what the rate was in 2014. And we continue to provide these services, and this grant is focused on that group of unduplicated pupils that are not as successful and closing that gap. I'll pause there.
Just in terms of just putting some numbers on that. So I mentioned earlier in the presentation, SFUSD, about 70.9% of graduates are meeting that A to G course requirement. At the state level, it's around 51.8%. So we're 20% higher to the state. But I do recognize that gap between our various subgroup populations where it's still prominent, in that A to G completion rate. So hopefully these funds can help kind of create those opportunities and really highlight the need of, not just graduating our students, but graduating them with the requirements so they could have the opportunity to apply for four-year state colleges.
Could you please share the rates by ethnicity for our groups? I know that was shared when we kind of initially announced the rates, but I just feel like that would be helpful for folks to know, to kind of get a feel of kind of where the gaps is and which communities are most negatively impacted by it.
Yeah, definitely. We could share that with you and with the group. So.
Could we share it now? Like, is that something that we could read the numbers out? I do have the numbers that are shared on DataQuest, so I could read it if staff doesn't have, but I would just like to kind of share that publicly in the meeting now, if we could.
Maybe if we can take the next comment, then Julie can look for some of that data.
Yeah, that'd be great. I have
Did you say you had it?
I have it up from DataQuest, yeah, so I can read it
Why
if
don't you
that's
just share?
helpful.
Yes.
Okay, so for African American students, our cohort graduation rate shows 86%, and the graduates meeting the UC and CSU requirement is 41.9%. For Asian students, our cohort graduation rate is 95.1%. The graduates meeting UC CSU requirements is 84.2%. For Filipino students, the cohort graduation rate is 94.1%. Meeting UC CSU requirements is 73.8%. For Latino students, cohort graduation rate is 76.7%. UC CSU requirements met is 51%. For Pacific Islanders, graduation rate is 83%. For UC CSU requirements, it's 43.2%. For white students, graduation rate is 90.4%. UC CSU requirements is 80.2%. For two or more races, our cohort graduation rate is 89%. Meeting UC CSU requirements is 67.8%. And we don't have enough students to report data for American Indian and not reported. So just to share that out so the public has it and can kind of see the way that this issue impacts different students differently. And then I think the follow-up question I just had is just specifically knowing that we kind of are in a state where we're not able to direct supports based on race and ethnicity. How will we be able to support our Black students, our Pacific Island students, and our American Indian students and Latino students and all the other students with the really large gaps? Kind of, I guess, what is our approach to kind of make sure those students who are kind of the furthest behind in meeting the requirements are getting the additional support they need to kind of make up?
Yes, we have a number of affinity-based programs that are designed to try to do specific outreach to targeted groups, including the recruiting of staff who have a similar background to the student groups. In some cases, our programming, if we can have a course such as African American literature, then we can recruit students to that course. And in many cases, African American students will choose to sign up for that section of our credit recovery. And then we can provide additional support in that class to help students to pass the class and be successful. So those are examples of programs that we have. Also, in this grant, there is some work for working with post-secondary institutions. So we hope to help students enroll in ethnic studies and in courses such as Latin American history, Filipino history, or Pacific Islander history, something like that, in our post-secondary partnerships.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate the answer and the intentionality in our approach. And I guess my final comment is really just, for me, it's really exciting to see all the success and growth we've made around our graduation rate. But I feel like it has to be tempered when we haven't really met that goal around the UC CSU requirements, which I think is foundational to us graduating students. And when we have a situation where lots of different student groups are below 50%, we really need to reevaluate our ability to kind of execute our graduation requirement and really set students and families up to be successful. Thank you.
Vice President Lam, can I make a quick follow-up?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, I just want to, following up on Commissioner Bogus's point, well, two things. One is those rates actually have gotten a little better. So not they have, because, and the reason I know that is because we track data very carefully. When I was principal at June Jordan School for Equity, we had, in between 2010 and 2016, the rate for Black students A through G eligibility in SFUSD was 30% over those years. Black students was 27%, Latinx students was 37%. At June Jordan, we had rates around 70% for Black students and Latinx students, and which wasn't good enough either. But part of it, I guess I just want to put in a plug for school-wide strategies. So the credit recovery matters, and I think the work that they're doing in credit recovery is great. But if we don't attack this from the front end, like it can't be about catching up, right? I mean, you have to have, starting in the 9th grade, high school needs to be a place that's welcoming, culturally relevant, where there's teachers that are, excellent at both at classroom culture and highly demanding, intellectually rigorous work that engages students through ethnic studies and similar strategies. And so I think I would like to, and Commissioner Lam and I have talked about this, I think we really need to think about our high schools across the board and have a detailed look at what's working and what's not working, and sort of take a comprehensive approach to this, because so we're not playing catch up, in other words.
Thank you so much. And I think you all know how passionately I feel about high school curriculum and teaching and learning. And I just wanted to add the comment that I am looking forward to having even deeper dive discussions as a full board, along with our student delegates, around learning recovery, education outcomes, and really diving deeply into the data, understanding how we match that up with our curriculum and instruction so that it is earlier interventions for the ultimate success of our students, their learning, and really their future, and all the opportunities that we have available to them, to our students, in fulfilling our vision of the graduate profile, and that not only celebrating our graduation rates, but really how are we setting our young people up for my priorities around 100% college ready, although recognizing that students may be taking a different journey, educational journey. So thank you. Look forward to our future discussions there. And thank you so much to our staff for the presentation and your work, and look forward to future presentation and adoption of that plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will now move to item I, introduction of proposals and assignment to committee. I will open it up to public comment first, and then before opening to board comments. But this is specifically for item I, which is 2238SP1, resolution in support of the naming of the Harvey Milk Civil Rights Academy garden. And Licia, if there's any public speakers to this resolution as stated in the agenda, and at this time, it is up to 5 minutes of public comment at 1 minute each, please.
As a reminder, we will hear public comment on the resolution in support of the naming of the Harvey Milk Civil Rights Academy. If you would like to share your comment, we have a total of 5 minutes for this item. Please raise your hand if you would like to speak to this item. Can that please be repeated in Spanish and Chinese?
Buenas noches. Por favor, levante la mano si quiere hablar sobre este último tema del que acabamos de hablar. Muchas gracias.
女性對支持命令Harvey Milk Civil Rights Academy 嘅花園嘅決議方案發表意見嘅話，請而家舉手。每位有1分鐘，總共有5分鐘嘅。Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
I am calling in support of the renaming. I just wanted to mention that in addition to the wonderful language of the proposal and all the work that the Harvey Milk community did with Zamora Moon during her fight against the IPG, which still kills 100% of students. I'm sorry, I knew Zamora before she was born. And she was my kindergarten student at El Dorado Elementary, where I had the incredible honor and privilege of working with her mom, Marisa Martinez, who dedicated over 20 years of her life, not just to Zamora's fight and her other children, but to the highest need children in San Francisco Unified at George Washington Carver, El Dorado Elementary, and Harvey Milk. Please vote yes on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Emmanuel Stewart?
Good evening, Board Commissioners. My name is Emmanuel Stewart. I'm the proud but very humble principal at Harvey Milk Civil Rights Academy. I ask you to support the renaming of the Harvey Milk School Community Garden after Zamora Moon. I did not meet this child. We do share one thing in common, that I am a cancer survivor. Myself, 5 years ago, was diagnosed with colon cancer, and I know how difficult the battle is. And so I ask you to please support this, as our school community really believed in Zamora, as well as her mother, Miss Martinez. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you. That concludes public comment for this item.
Thank you so much to the public for your comments, and great to hear from you, Principal Stewart. Really appreciate all of your leadership and work at Harvey Milk Academy, Civil Rights Academy. Colleagues, at this time, we are going to be assigning this to committee, but certainly welcome any brief comments you may have at this time. Seeing none, if I hear otherwise from legal counsel, I will refer this item to the Building Grounds and Services Committee. Great, thank you so much. We are now going to move ahead to agenda item J, board members' reports, reports from standing committees. Chair Alexander, report from the Augmented Budget and Business Services, which took place on Wednesday, March 2nd at 5 p.m.
Thank you, Vice President Lamb. We had an extensive and detailed discussion of our current fiscal situation. The budget team, Chief Wallace, and team did a great job of kind of laying out really clearly where we're at. So if people in the public or my colleagues didn't get a chance to attend that meeting, please look at the documents. There's some, it breaks out the budget in district and county with 3-year projections. I think it's really important information. And we're going to get some of that next meeting on March 22nd when we approve the interim report. The other thing is, I don't know if everyone heard, the reason we're not talking about the interim report tonight is we did get an extension by a week or so from CDE to submit the March interim report, so that's going to come to us on the 22nd. There was also a discussion around enrollment that I think is worth noting, that sort of looking at our enrollment projections and seeing that we're in a declining enrollment situation and the need for really understanding why. And we have some hypotheses as to why, but really getting some data on why and doing some demographic analysis, which I know has been done in the past, but really so that we can plan thoughtfully for the next 5 to 10 years, just understanding, because that picture has really changed. I was actually today just looking at the last demographic report we did in 2018, which suggested we were going to have big increases in enrollment. So just kind of understanding coming out of the pandemic, where we really are at, I think is going to be important. Coming out of that meeting. But again, thank you to the budget staff, and please do review those materials, colleagues, if you have a chance.
Thank you so much, Chair Alexander. And I encourage the public to continue to stay engaged. We're going to continue on with pretty deep dives into the budget and business services moving forward. Go ahead.
And one thing I should say also, as we think about the deficit, I want to be clear, we've closed our deficit. I mean, we really have gotten to the point where, we for the next 2 years, we've saved enough money over the last year that we're putting in $30 million from our budget stabilization reserve the next 2 years, and that actually balances the budget for the next for the next coming 3 years. So we're in a much, much better financial position than we were in December, and I want to make sure that the public knows that. We'll hear about that on the 22nd, but just wanted to say that.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to call on Chair Bogus. We held the Policy Rules Committee just yesterday on Monday, March 7th.
Yeah, my update from the Augmented Rules Policy and Legislation Committee. We had 3 action items, 2 of which we made positive recommendations to the board. One regarding transitional kindergarten, the other regarding charter schools renewal to keep us in compliance and aligned. The other item, which was a legislative overview, which if people are interested in the things that we're tracking as a district to support and the things that we're planning to kind of try to help get passed, there's some stuff available in board docs and the agenda that highlights that. We took no action on that, and that'll be coming back again at a future board meeting. We had one informational item on the California Community Schools Partnership Program, where staff provided an update on the application's availability and the readiness of us to apply. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And at this time, I'm going to ask for reports from board delegates to membership organizations. I do not have any updates from CSBA.
The Council of the Great City Schools Legislation Policy Conference is coming up on the 18th of this month in DC, and I will be attending as the delegate from this board. I'll report back.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Sanchez. And at this time, any other reports by board members or student delegates? Seeing none. Calendar of committee meetings upcoming, Chair Bogus.
Yes, tomorrow we have a meeting of the Student Assignment Ad Hoc Committee, the Augmented Ad Hoc Committee on Student Assignment. Very important for folks who want to know what's happening with our elementary school assignment system and how we're moving forward in the creation of our zones to help deal with inequity and segregation in our schools.
Thank you so much. So join us for third night in a row this week, tomorrow. See you there. We are now going to move into agenda item K, our memorial adjournment. Dr. Matthews?
Tonight, this memorial adjournment is for Arturo Ocaño. He dedicated over 20 years to supporting students at San Francisco Unified School District starting in 1994. He always thought of new ways to support our students in the classroom. If something he suggested didn't work, he would offer alternative solutions. Arturo cared for our students and advocated on their behalf. His commitment to the community showed in the community work sites, exposed our students to volunteering with Martin De Porres House of Hospitality. The students and staff who have worked with him over the years value the friendship and fun he brought into our learning environment. Although we continue to grieve his loss, we will remember him by his catchphrase, shake and bake. Arturo was always about staying positive and moving forward. We're grateful for the time we were able to share with him. On behalf of the community at Burton High School, Arturo will be greatly missed and well remembered.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews. At this time, we will move into agenda item L, which is our closed session. And before the board goes into closed session, I call for any speakers to the closed session items listed in the agenda. There will be a total of up to 5 minutes for speakers. Public speakers, please raise your hands at this time. Alicia?
Seeing no public comment at this time.
Thank you. The board will now go into closed session. Thus, I call a recess of the regular meeting.
Recording stopped.
We can open up
The Google Meet.
Just move the time up, open up the Google Meet and just mute it and turn your camera off and then just wait for folks to come in. But we always got it the same thing. We have to keep our computers totally muted because only like one or more of.
Okay. Oh, and then I should get the readout as well.
Yeah,
Is
pull
this
that
the-
You're the worst.
Hey, Judson. Actually, I would just, you're not even gonna have a readout there because by not reading it out, the board doesn't take action to issue the non-reelection and.
Danielle,
Yep. Yep, you're welcome. Hi, Melly.
you want to meet? I think we're back in the meeting.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry.
Recording in progress.
Thank you, everyone. I'd like to go to agenda item M, reconvene to open session, and I will report from closed session. And just want to acknowledge that all 4 of us are present, meeting quorum. Report from closed session on one matter of public employee discipline dismissal release. The board, by a vote of 4 ayes, 2 absent, Collins Lopez, approved a retirement and release agreement for 1 certified employee. On one matter of anticipated litigation, the board gave direction to the general counsel. On one matter of existing litigation, that's Friends of Lowell, duplicative. So just again, for detailed, on one matter of existing litigation, Friends of Lowell Foundation et al. Versus San Francisco Board of Education, San Francisco Superior Court case number CPF 21517445, the board gave direction to general counsel. And that concludes the shared reading of the closed session report. And I'd like to officially move to adjournment. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great night.
Recording stopped.